Chapter 1242. I am the origin divine sage, Tianyang said coldly. His eyes were filled with arrogance. Since Ling Yuhan had been successfully rescued, the only thing left to do was to give the snow sky foxes a good beating. Origin divine sage? Upon hearing this, the expressions of the Supreme Second Elder and Supreme Third Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan changed slightly. Meanwhile, in the middle of the crowd, the first Supreme Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan, who had taken Tianyang's god-piercing blade, was bleeding profusely from his eyes. His expression was extremely ugly. A sage, primordial spirit. You are really a sage, primordial spirit. The first Supreme Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan roared. He had underestimated Tianyang and had been hit by Tianyang's god-piercing blade. Although his primordial spirit had not been torn apart, the first Supreme Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan felt as if his mind had been torn apart. Even if he used his primordial spirit to control his body to speak, he would still feel immense pain. In the next moment, the first Supreme Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan roared and charged towards Tianyang. Unparalleled ice and snow. The first Supreme Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan roared. His true yuan of the sage, primordial spirit exploded. In the next moment, he aimed his palm at Tianyang's head and struck. In the surroundings, there seemed to be countless ice flowers blooming with the same light. A terrifying brilliance condensed in the hands of the Snow Sky Fox clan's first Supreme Elder, turning into a terrifying domain. A domain would automatically form once one entered the sage realm. This unparalleled ice and snow was what most of the sages of the Snow Sky Fox clan had learned. The ice and snow domain. Among them, the first Supreme Elder's ice and snow domain was the strongest in the entire Snow Sky Fox clan. Die! The first Supreme Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan roared and struck out with his palm. 10,000 destruction. Tianyang's expression was cold as he struck out with the great void sword embryo in his hand. From bottom to top, the sword cut through the void for 80,000 miles and froze the Snow Sky Mountain. In just an instant, with the support of the primordial spirit of the sage state, the 5 holy paths merged perfectly. Tianyang's heavenly sword also unleashed the heaven-devouring secret skill at this moment. His cultivation instantly broke through to the peak of the mid-level half-saint. His true essence was at the peak of the middle level of the half-saint realm, coupled with the terrifying sword strike of the 5 sacred paths. In an instant, he tore through the void and collided with the first Supreme Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan. Boom! A loud bang reverberated throughout the entire Snow God Palace. Countless Wuzun and sages present were horrified as they stared at Tianyang in disbelief. Even the powerful cultivators from all over the world might not be able to sense the terrifying aura of the sword at close range. He was afraid that he would be severely injured by the terrifying aura. What happened next made them even more flabbergasted. Heaven and earth collapsed as the sword descended. The Snow Sky Fox clan's Grand Elder's entire ice domain was torn apart by this sword. The center of the Snow Sky Fox clan's first Supreme Elder's palm also had a bloody wound. It was so deep that the bone could be seen. Ah! The first Supreme Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan screamed. Tianyang's sword not only contained the 5 holy paths, but also the true destructive flames. The terrifying power of ice and fire instantly destroyed the first Supreme Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan's mind. He screamed as if he had lost his mind. Big brother! Seeing this, the second Supreme Elder and third Supreme Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan's faces changed instantly. They roared and charged toward Tianyang. I can even kill the Heavenly Dragon Saint. Why can't I deal with you guys? Although the Heavenly Dragon Saint was not far from a sage, in front of Tianyang, he was still a sage. A slight difference was enough to determine the outcome of the battle. The primordial spirit of the sage state surged and turned into numerous blades that could pierce through the primordial spirit. They weaved into a net of blades and flew toward the second Supreme Elder and third Supreme Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan. The two of them instantly stopped charging forward. In the next moment, blood spurted out of their eyes and orifices as they fell to the ground. Damn it! Seeing this, the first Supreme Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan roared and charged forward again. However, Tianyang's eyes narrowed, and his primordial spirit power surged out. Thousands of god-piercing blades shot out toward the first Supreme Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan. God of Snow Lightbreak. The first Supreme Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan's primordial spirit went berserk and shot out a terrifying beam of light. However, it did not hinder the god-piercing blades at all. The god-piercing blades pierced through the primordial spirit of the first Supreme Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan. However, Tianyang was also hit by the terrifying beam of light and spat out blood. After all, he was only Wu Zun at his peak. If he did not have the embryonic form of the Dragon Emperor's body, this move would have killed him. It didn't die. Seeing this, the first Supreme Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan revealed a look of disbelief and fell to the ground. The god-piercing blade was not an ordinary primordial spirit secret skill. How could it be bad when it was produced by the Heaven's Expanse Temple? Although Tianyang had thought that it was a loss to exchange the King of Venomous Worms for the god-piercing blade. However, now that he had seen the terrifying power of the god-piercing blade, Tianyang did not think so anymore. Slash after slash, it was like killing a chicken with a butcher's knife. It was easy and comfortable and cut the opponent into ashes. However, the three first Supreme Elders of the Snow Sky Fox clan seemed to have life-saving skills. Tianyang's god-piercing blade, net, could not kill all of them. However, this also allowed Tianyang to see why primordial spirits could be called saints once they entered the saint realm. Most of the saints' primordial spirit power was at the peak of the half-saint realm. The primordial spirit power of a saint realm, coupled with a powerful primordial spirit secret skill, was like a demon in front of the primordial spirits of the half-saint realm. However, if my primordial spirit can't keep up, I still can't kill them. Tianyang sighed and looked at the three first Supreme Elders of the Snow Sky Fox clan in front of him. Perhaps the three of them had the power to fight, but now their primordial spirits had been severely injured by the god-piercing blade. They might not be able to stand up even if they wanted to fight. Tianyang had consumed a lot of primordial spirit power. At this moment, Tianyang's face was pale and his primordial spirit power was greatly depleted. He had the endless spiritual sea to fight with primordial spirit, but there was no such terrifying existence in the primordial spirit. For Tianyang, fighting three saints at the peak of the half-saint realm at the same time was still too much of a burden. It would be good if he could preserve 1% of his combat strength. Master! Seeing this, Ling Yuhan rushed up and poured the power of the Nine Nether Saint body into Tianyang's body. However, Tianyang's injuries were mostly in his primordial spirit. Although the Nine Nether Saint body was powerful, it was not very useful. Just watch from his side. Tianyang twitched the corner of his mouth and looked at Jiang Tianbing, who was being suppressed by the Red Dragon Saint. I see. It seems that everything that happened before was just my wishful thinking. At this moment, an extremely empty voice, as if everything had been sucked out, was heard. Ling Yuhan's face changed instantly. Jiang Shuling, if you dare to touch my master, I will kill you even if I have to risk my life. In the next moment, the nine-tailed moon fox martial soul. Release. Ice Emperor's Heaven Sword skill. Activate. Wu Zun's LV6 cultivation aura burst out. No. Hearing this, Jiang Shuling shook her head and smiled bitterly. Instead, she looked at Tianyang, who was barely standing. Although it is a little suspicious of taking advantage of others, I still want to say it. You are very strong, but you are not suitable for Yuhan. She is from the Fox clan and has the Fox clan's god's spiritual bloodline. It is only right to be compatible with the Fox clan. You and I, let's fight. The winner will take Yuhan away, Jiang Shuling said. Hearing this, Tianyang devoured all the spiritual chi of heaven and earth around him and shook his head. Seeing this, Jiang Shuling's eyes suddenly showed a trace of disappointment. In the next moment, Tianyang's cold voice was heard slowly. I will not use Yuhan as a wager. But, Chapter 1243. looking for a chance to be abused? Hearing this, Jiang Shuling was instantly stunned. Then, endless anger surged on her gentle and refined face. No matter what, he was still the young master of the Snow Sky Fox clan. Peak sage to be, he was the strongest genius in the entire northern spiritual state. No matter how good her temper was, she would be furious if she was looked down upon. All right. Jiang Shuling forcefully suppressed the anger in her heart and looked at Tianyang with a burning gaze. Then, I'll give you a chance to be abused. Then we'll fight. Let's see who's stronger. Number 1. Tianyang chuckled, and a trace of pride appeared on his pale face. He extended his index finger. You don't deserve to call her Yuhan. Second, he raised his middle finger. There's no need to see who's stronger, because I'm stronger than you. Bastard. Tianyang's merciless taunts angered Jiang Shuling. Snow Fox Creation Fist. The true origin of a peak sage-to-be exploded. The terrifying power of ice and snow covered the surroundings. The surrounding space seemed to be frozen by the terrifying ice domain. On the other side, the Snow Sky Fox clan's first Supreme Elder, who was severely injured by Tianyang, was shocked. Young Master's ice domain is not weaker than mine. You're indeed the genius young master who inherited the power of the snow god. Tianyang is going to die for underestimating his opponent. The Snow Sky Fox clan's Supreme Grand Elder laughed out loud. At this time, in the middle of the solidified space, a terrifying fist print suddenly shot out. The fist seemed to be able to shatter the layers of space. Countless pieces of ice were shattered at this moment. Interesting. Tianyang curled his lips. Although he was severely injured, it did not mean that he had lost all his combat power. Although his primordial spirit was greatly exhausted, it did not affect him from using his martial skills. Sky Sword Technique, First Sword, Sky Piercing. The Great Void Sword embryo instantly released a streak of sharp sword light, which collided with the fist print. Boom! In an instant, a powerful shockwave was released from the center of the collision and engulfed everything around it. The entire world was shaking. This power is interesting. Tianyang raised his eyebrows and revealed a surprised expression. A snow-white light flashed, and Tianling's sword was instantly shattered. However, Tianyang casually waved his sword, and the remaining fist print was easily destroyed. Ha ha! Young Master is a genius who inherited the power of the snow god. So what if you're a sage? Holy monarchs, great sages, and holy emperors are nothing but ants in front of the supreme snow goddess. Give up. It's impossible for you to defeat young Master. The first Supreme Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan laughed out loud. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression did not change. He looked indifferently at Jiang Shuling in front of him. At this moment, Jiang Shuling had completely transformed into her original form of a demon. A huge foxtail swayed behind her back and constantly released a terrifying aura. 2 fox ears also grew out from Jiang Shuling's sides, adding a demonic aura to her already handsome face. Snow God? That sounds familiar. At this moment, the little golden girl's voice suddenly sounded in Tianyang's mind. Tianyang was stunned and then said in surprise, "You know, maybe, in the memory of the Heaven's Expanse Temple, there seems to be this person," the little golden girl said. Then, she continued, "She's probably someone who's in the same realm as the creator of the Heaven's Expanse Temple. However, the one in front of you has probably only inherited a little of the snow god's impure power. You can solve it yourself. I'm too lazy to talk about it." The little golden girl said casually, and then disappeared into thin air. If Tianyang was not in a life-and-death situation, she would not have bothered to speak. This time, she only appeared because she sensed a slightly familiar aura. Tianyang did not care. Even if a peak half-saint had inherited some kind of power, it was impossible for him to be a match for a saint. Even after activating the power of the snow god, I still can't defeat him? Looking at Tianyang, who was still pale but had not suffered any injuries in the previous battle, Jiang Shuling was stunned. In the eyes of the Snow Fox tribe, the power of the snow god was the supreme power in this world. Back then, the Jiyu Saint Emperor had met the power of the Snow God once and admitted that the Saint Emperor's realm could not compare to it. However, she had already activated her power of the Snow God to the limit. Why couldn't she do anything to Tianyang? If that's the case, Jiang Shuling gritted her teeth and glanced at Ling Yuhan, whose eyes were still on Tianyang. A flame flashed in her eyes. In the next moment, she rushed out. Snow Fox God. In an instant, Jiang Shuling's aura changed abruptly. The power of the Snow God was no longer condensed in her attacks. Instead, it was directly attached to her body. Jiang Shuling's snow-white foxtail suddenly became translucent. Her pupils gradually elongated and became vertical slits. As for those fox ears, they expanded several times in an instant. Her aura changed abruptly. She actually crossed the indestructible barrier between a peak half-saint and a saint and stepped into the saint realm in one step. Snow Fox God, ultimate snow world. Jiang Shuling roared angrily. Her terrifying true origin, which had reached the saint realm, and the power of the Snow God, surged out violently. Jiang Shuling's figure suddenly flickered. A terrifying ball of light blasted toward Tianyang. At this moment, the ice domain was also released to the extreme. It was even more powerful than the Snow Fox tribe's first supreme elder. The Red Dragon Saint, who was one-sidedly suppressing Jiang Tianbing, changed his expression slightly and looked in Tianyang's direction. Jiang Tianbing, who was being suppressed by the Red Dragon Saint, also changed his expression instantly. He let out a maniacal laugh. Ha ha! Linger is indeed Linger. She can actually use the power of the Snow God to such an extent. Our Snow Fox tribe has the hope of becoming a great saint tribe in the future. Jiang Tianbing immediately gave up resisting and allowed the Red Dragon Saint to suppress him. However, the Red Dragon Saint was not in the mood to deal with this half-step great saint. His expression changed slightly as he looked at Tianyang. If Tianyang really could not withstand it, then he would have to step in. Blizzard breaks the sky. Jiang Shuling roared angrily. A 1,000-foot-long sword appeared in her hand. A person who was at most 8 feet tall, holding a 1,000-foot-long sword. This scene was spectacular. The sword slashed down. It was as if heaven and earth were about to break. Playing with a sword in front of me? Seeing this, Tianyang's expression did not change. Instead, he revealed a slight smile. The great void sword embryo in his hand instantly emitted a terrifying ray of light. Divine martial soul talent. First sword, Sky Cloud. Second, martial soul talent. Chapter 1244. Sword of Heaven. Heavenly Cloud. A beam of sword radiance seemed to appear out of thin air. It shone with a bright white light and appeared in front of Tianyang. After the sword attack, Tianyang's genuine core power, which he had not used before, was drained in an instant. He almost had no strength to stand still. However, its power was also very obvious. Without the slightest movement, this sword directly shattered the sword that Jiang Shuling had used all her strength to slash out. Even the 1,000-feet large sword was silently turned into dust in an instant. On the other hand, the Heavenly Cloud sword was not damaged at all. Instead, it charged toward Jiang Shuling at an even faster speed. Linger! Seeing this, Jiang Tianbing's pupils suddenly shrank. He roared and instantly burst out with extreme speed, rushing toward the sword radiance. I seal! Jiang Tianbing roared, and the terrifying, genuine core power of a half-step great saint burst out. A terrifying giant ice shield appeared in front of Jiang Shuling. At the same time, the entire Snow God Hall was frozen by a terrifying extreme cold. The true destructive flames instinctively appeared and surrounded Tianyang, isolating him from the ice. Otherwise, even Tianyang would have been frozen by the terrifying power of the ice seal. Although Ling Yuhan had the 9 Nether Saint body and the 9-tailed Moon Fox bloodline, which was superior to the entire Snow Fox clan, her expression changed when she was affected by the ice seal. However, she quickly activated the power of her martial soul and surrounded her and Tianyang. Boom! Everything happened in an instant. The heavenly cloud sword shattered the giant ice shield at the moment the giant ice shield was formed. How is this possible? Jiang Tianbing's pupil shrank. Although he had formed the defense in a hurry, it could not have been broken by the attack of a peak Wuzun. However, it was too late now. With his speed, he could not catch up with the heavenly cloud sword that was slashing toward Jiang Shuling. Oh no! At this moment, a soft sigh was heard from the side. Then, a red shadow flashed by. The Crimson Dragon Saint appeared in front of Jiang Shuling in an instant, as if he had teleported. An incomparably terrifying flame of the dragon tribe ignited the entire world at this instant. Break! The Crimson Dragon Sage let out a low roar. Crimson flames burned wildly. His right hand had already transformed into a dragon claw. With a grave expression, he struck out. The sky cloud sword's sword light instantly stopped, but it still stubbornly resisted. It was not until half a minute later that it was burned into nothingness by the violent flames. At the back, Jiang Shuling, whose entire heart was filled with the danger of death, had long been dumbfounded. She only collapsed when the danger was gone. Linger! Jiang Tianbing roared and hurriedly caught Jiang Shuling. He operated his genuine vitality of a half-step great saint and scanned Jiang Shuling from head to toe. Fortunately, other than the injuries from using the power of the snowy sky fox god to forcefully release the 1,000-foot-long sword, there were no other injuries. At most, they would have fainted because of Tianyang's sky sword. This sword, seeing that the sky cloud sword had dissipated, the Crimson Dragon Saint let out a sigh of relief. He retracted his right hand and glanced at it. A bloody wound so deep that bone could be seen in the dragon claw's palm was rapidly healing. This kid has so many trump cards, the Crimson Dragon Saint said with a sigh. The Crimson Dragon Saint sighed. However, seeing that Tianyang was forcefully holding on and not fainting, the consumption of this sword was also enormous. If news of the Crimson Dragon Saint's injury were to spread, the entire Xintian great world would be shaken. Wu Zun, who was at his peak, had actually injured a great saint. Even if it was just a little, it was enough to shock the world. You must be Ling Yuhan. Ignoring Jiang Tianbing and his son, the Crimson Dragon Saint walked up to Ling Yuhan with a smile. At this moment, Ling Yuhan was holding Tianyang, who was almost unable to stand up, in her arms. She poured genuine vitality into Tianyang's body as if she didn't care about her own life. However, Tianyang's boundless spirit Xi was enormous. Although Ling Yuhan was terrifyingly talented, she was only at Wu Zun's 6th level. Even if she poured all her genuine vitality into him, she probably wouldn't be able to fill even 1% of his boundless spirit Xi. That's right. Thank you very much. Ling Yuhan nodded and glanced at the Crimson Dragon Saint gratefully. The Crimson Dragon Saint had contributed greatly to Tianyang being able to rescue Ling Yuhan this time. Otherwise, Tianyang would have been on the verge of death when facing 3 peak saints who had underestimated their opponents and hadn't been able to use much of their strength. If Jiang Tianbing had come along, Tianyang would have been dead for sure. The Crimson Dragon Saint waved his hand and smiled. I was just doing what I was asked to do. You're welcome. However, let me remind you that you can't help Tianyang like this. He's an elixir emperor. Ask him to look for his space bag. There might be pills there. The Crimson Dragon Saint couldn't help. He was from the Dragon Clan and cultivated dragon power. If he forced it into Tianyang's body, Tianyang wouldn't be able to adapt and would explode. As for pills, he was planning to go back in a few days. Why would he bring any pills? Pills? Ling Yuhan was stunned when she heard that. Then, a hint of joy appeared on her face. She quickly picked up Tianyang's space bag. This is his space bag. You have to let him. Master has modified it. This space bag can be used by me too. Ling Yuhan smiled. Then, she took out a few lesser saint-grade healing pills that Tianyang had made in the divine origin grotto heaven to train his primordial spirit and prepare for this battle. After entering the essence saint realm, Tianyang's saint realm alchemy, Dao, had improved by leaps and bounds. Making these pills was a piece of cake. As long as he had enough true essence, he would be an essence saint realm alchemy, Dao saint. He could stand shoulder to shoulder with the patriarch of one Dan holy sect. Although the patriarch of one Dan holy sect was already an alchemy Tao saint, he only had a half-step Saint Realm primordial spirit. He wasn't in essence Saint Realm alchemy Tao saint. Bantan Simeon was strong in the alchemy world of the Eastern Sky Divine Land, but it was nothing in the world of martial Tao, at least as far as Tianyang knew. The Eastern Sky Divine Land, the Western Pure Land of Buddha, the Northern Wilderness Desert, and the Southern Devil Sea all had a Saint Emperor. The spiritual state, which was known as the fifth state of the Xintian continent, also had a Saint Emperor before the Jiyu Saint Emperor died. As for the Divine Central Continent, there were many hidden dragons and crouching tigers. There must be a Saint Emperor too. Tianyang's current strength was at the top of the pyramid in the Xintian Great World, but he was still a bit away from the top. "Master, open your mouth," Ling Yuhan said gently. Tianyang simply closed his eyes and let Ling Yuhan put the pills into his mouth. On the side, the Red Dragon Saint had already turned his head away. He couldn't bear to watch this scene. As for the surroundings, none of the tens of thousands of Wuzun saints dared to move. The three grand elders of the Snow Sky Fox clan were still lying on the ground. As for Jiang Tianbing and Jiang Shuling, they stood at the side and looked at Tianyang and the other two silently. There were countless experts in the Snow Sky mountain range. Chapter 1245. You can take her away. Finally, after half an hour, Jiang Tianbing, who had woken Jiang Shuling up, spoke slowly. Hearing this, the Red Dragon Saint's face flashed with surprise. He did not expect Jiang Tianbing to be so easygoing. As expected, the bloodline of a deity is inviolable. Our Snow Sky Fox clan forced her to stay and went against the will of the deity. As expected, we have incurred the wrath of the heavens. Jiang Tianbing sighed, feeling very tired in his heart. They had prepared for more than a year, but in the end, it was all for naught. Jiang Shuling's face was also ashen. She felt that there was nothing more sorrowful than death. It was one thing to recognize reality, but it was another to feel emotional. Seeing this, Wu Zun and the other sages could not bear to see this. However, the truth was obvious. The Snow Sky Fox clan had forced someone else's partner, and they deserved to end up like this. However, even as Jiang Tianbing said that, his eyes were still filled with boundless anger. After all, no matter what, the Snow Sky Fox clan was still a large clan. They were one of the most powerful people in a northern spiritual state. Even in the entire spiritual state, they were one of the top 10 clans. Today, on the day of their young master's wedding, someone had come and snatched the bride away. The entire Snow Sky Fox clan was disgraced. As the clan leader of the Snow Sky Fox clan, he was naturally furious. However, in front of the absolute power of the Red Dragon Saint, what could he say? "Then, we'll take her away. I hope the Snow Sky Fox clan will behave themselves in the future." Tianyang is a friend of the Red Dragon Saint and a friend of the entire Zhenlong Sacred Realm. If the Snow Sky Fox clan dares to touch Ling Yuhan again, then I don't mind breaking the limbs of the entire Snow Sky Fox clan. The Red Dragon Saint's eyes were cold as he said. He had lived for hundreds of thousands of years. Although 90% of his time was spent in seclusion, the remaining 10% of his time was enough for him to know what to say now. The Red Dragon Saint did not know how strong Ling Yuhan's bloodline was, but he knew that if Tianyang was not strong enough, the Snow Sky Fox clan would attack again. Previously, Tianyang's identity as an origin sacred lord was enough for the Red Dragon Saint to treat him as an equal. Furthermore, Tianyang's cultivation was only at the peak of Wu Zun's level. The Red Dragon Saint also wanted to be on good terms with him, and that sword strike just now, although the side effect was huge and Tianyang instantly lost his ability to fight, that was a sword that could even injure a great sage. If Tianyang stepped into the Saint Realm, how powerful would he be? At that time, even if there were 10 Jiang Tianbings below the Great Saint Realm, they would not be able to defeat Tianyang. Therefore, the Crimson Dragon Sage had to support Tianyang to the end. Hearing that, Jiang Tianbing's expression changed slightly. At first, He thought that the Red Dragon Saint was only doing this because of some treasure, or that Tianyong had something to do with the Red Dragon Saint. This kind of relationship was extremely shallow, and it might be gone after this. But now, it seemed that the relationship between the Red Dragon Saint and Tianyong was completely different from what he had imagined. It was much stronger than the strongest relationship he had ever imagined. In the entire Xintian Great World, there were only a handful of people who could make the Red Dragon Saint make a promise on behalf of the true Dragon Sacred Domain. I will definitely listen to the Great Sage's orders. Jiang Tianbing struggled for a while, but finally nodded silently. The Snow Sky Fox clan could not afford to offend the true Dragon's Sacred Domain. That's good. The Red Dragon Saint nodded, although he did not completely trust Jiang Tianbing's promise. A promise made in front of tens of thousands of reputable saints like Wu Zun was still binding. By the time Jiang Tianbing was completely shameless, Tianyong would have stepped into the saint realm, and the Snow Sky Fox clan would be nothing to him. Then we will take our leave, the Red Dragon Saint said, and then rose into the air. Tianyong was about to move, but Ling Yuhan picked him up by the waist and followed the Red Dragon Saint. Tianyong did not resist being carried by his wife, but what he did not want to accept the most was Ling Yuhan carried him in a princess carry. In the end, the farce of the Snow Sky Fox clan ended with the three grand elders of the clan being severely injured, Jiang Shuling's heart being hurt, and the woman being taken away. Fortunately, the Red Dragon Saint did not hit Jiang Tianbing too hard. Otherwise, if Jiang Tianbing was seriously injured, the Snow Sky Fox clan, which had been passed down for a long time, would not be able to keep it. Tens of thousands of Wu Zun saints also left, bringing the clan leader of the Snow Sky Fox clan to the half-step Great Saint level. But he was beaten to the ground by the Red Dragon Saint during the ceremony, and the other three Grand Elders were seriously injured by the same person, and the woman was taken away. Jiang Tianbing did not need to think to know that the Snow Sky Fox clan's image was completely ruined. Damned Red Dragon Saint! Damn Tianyong! Damn true dragon, sacred domain! Jiang Tianbing roared furiously in the heavenly snow palace, causing the entire palace to tremble. But no one saw it. At the center of the heavenly snow palace, the eyes of the eternal heavenly snow statue suddenly flashed. True dragon, sacred domain, crimson dragon city. F***CK. How did my big brother Tianyong get hurt like this? The Red Dragon Saint returned to the Crimson Dragon City Lord Manor and arranged for Tianyong to stay in the best room. Qi Yingtian, who had been waiting for the Red Dragon Saint and Tianyong to return, exploded when he saw Tianyong's face, which was paler than a sheet of paper. How dare the Snow Sky Fox clan be so arrogant? How dare they beat big brother Tianyong up like this? Who is it? I'll beat them up so badly that even their own mother won't recognize them. Qi Yingtian roared furiously as the crimson dragon flames unique to the Crimson Dragon clan danced around his body. Although it was only at the level of a peak martial honorable, its quality was comparable to the Scarlet Dragon Flame that the Scarlet Dragon Sage had used to block Tianyong's sword at the Snow Sky Fox clan. The Snow Sky Fox clan has three Grand Elders. Two of them are Heavenly Dragon Saints, and one of them is a true Essence Saint. The Red Dragon Saint rolled his eyes at Qi Yingtian. You're going to fight them? Qi Yingtian was dumbfounded. After a long while, he finally spat out, Big brother is awesome. Also, they've been beaten up so badly by Master that even their mothers won't recognize them. You don't need to finish them off. At this moment, Ling Yuhan suddenly spoke. Qi Yingtian was stunned and immediately saw Ling Yuhan squatting beside Tianyong's bed. This is sister-in-law. Qi Yingtian was startled, then immediately shouted and bowed on the spot. Hello, sister-in-law. Long live sister-in-law. Good luck, sister-in-law. Sister-in-law, I am Big Brother Tianyong's #1 underling. I might even be Big Brother Tianyong's #1 disciple. Sister-in-law, you must put in a good word for me in front of Big Brother Tianyong. I'm Master's first disciple. Ling Yuhan said lightly. Qi Yingtian was dumbfounded again. However, Ling Yuhan's face was a little red. She was a little embarrassed to be called sister-in-law. All right, Qing Tian, you go out first. The Red Dragon Saint couldn't stand Qi Tian's strange babbling and waved his hand, throwing Qi Tian out. Then, he looked at Tianyang with a grave look in his eyes. You should have recovered a little by now. 30%. From the Red Dragon Saint's eyes, the Heavenly Sun sect knew the seriousness of the topic they were about to discuss. Now that you're a true Essence Saint, I want to ask you something. Chapter 1246. Do you plan to go to the Xianyuan family to save your father? The Crimson Dragon Saint said. Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. Beside him, Ling Yuhan's expression also changed. Master's father is also in the Xiantian Great World. Ling Yuhan was surprised. She thought she was extremely lucky to have found the Xiantian Great World. Who knew that Tianyang's father was also there? Ling Yuhan and Tianyang were both from the Blizzard State. Although Ling Yuhan had been adopted by the Ling Yun sect since she was young, she still knew about the 8 major families of the Blizzard State. Among them was the Tian family. She also knew that the head of the Tian family had suddenly disappeared when Tianyang was young. Ling Yuhan had also guessed before where the Tian family's clan head had gone, whether he had already died, but he had never thought about it. The head of the Tian family was in another world. That's right. The Dragon Saint nodded. On the bed, Tianyang was stunned. How did you know? Back then, your father relied on the immortal bloodline and his cultivation of martial honorable realm to kill his way into the Xianyuan family to take away the holy lady of the Xianyuan family. Even I have heard of this matter. Before that, you also had the immortal divine fire. Plus, you have the same surname. How could I not know? The Dragon Saint smiled. Back then, Tian Hao had killed his way into the Xianyuan family alone with his sword. It had shaken the entire Xiantian Great World. After all, the Xianyuan family was one of the most powerful families in the Divine Central Continent. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were one of the overlords of the Xiantian Great World. In front of the Xianyuan family, Wu Zun was just an ant. An ant had actually killed his way into the Xianyuan family and threatened to take away the most precious holy daughter of the Xianyuan family. In the end, he had killed many geniuses and elders of the Xianyuan family before being captured. Even the Dragon Saint was secretly shocked to hear such a valiant battle record. However, Ling Yuhan's expression changed when she heard this. The Tian family's clan head was captured? Ling Yuhan said in disbelief. Her face was filled with worry. The head of the Tian family was Tianyang's father. In other words, he was her future father-in-law. Now that her father-in-law had been arrested, it was only natural that she, as a daughter-in-law, would be worried. Yes, Tianyang nodded, but his expression was still not good. He could guess why the Crimson Dragon Saint was so serious about this. However, if you really intend to go to war with the Xianyuan family, I definitely can't go. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression did not change. Ling Yuhan was about to cry out in surprise when she immediately understood the reason. Although she didn't know how powerful the Xianyuan family was, she didn't know the power structure of the Xiantian Great World. However, she knew that if the Crimson Dragon Saint, who could even crush the Snow Sky Fox clan's Chong Jiang Tianbing to the ground, was afraid of how terrifying it was. Ling Yuhan was not even 30 years old and was a few months younger than Tianyang. However, her experience in the Tianshao Great World had made her far more knowledgeable than her peers. After all, the Snow Sky Fox clan is a hidden family. I know my limits. This world won't change because of the Snow Sky Fox clan. The true Dragon Sacred World won't be threatened by the Snow Sky Fox clan either. That's why I'm going with you. In the true Dragon Sacred World, there were more than 8 sages other than the Crimson Dragon Saint. Among them, there were the Heaven Dragon Saint, the Sea Dragon Saint, and the Earth Dragon Saint. They were all sages. Naturally, they wouldn't be afraid of the Snow Sky Fox clan that was far away in the northern spiritual state without the protection of a great sage. However, the Xianyuan family was different. On the surface, the Xianyuan family was stronger than the true Dragon Sacred World. In the dark, they were much stronger than the true Dragon Sacred World. If the Crimson Dragon Saint made a move, he would represent the entire true Dragon Sacred World. At that time, the true dragon's sacred world would be the one to suffer. I understand. Tianyang nodded. That's why I don't plan to go against the Xianyuan family immediately. The Xianyuan family was a colossus. Who knew how many sages they had? Although he was already an origin saint, would an origin saint be valued by the Xianyuan family? That might not be the case. To be valued by the Xianyuan family, or to have the strength to kill the Xianyuan family, one had to be at least a sage. Cultivating the 9 sages path and stepping into the sage realm, one would have the combat strength of a great sage in an instant. He would be on the same level as the strongest combat strength of the Xianyuan family. At that time, Tianyang didn't believe that the Xianyuan family could casually make a move on Tian Hao. Very wise. The Crimson Dragon Saint smiled. Tianyang's expression didn't change in the slightest, but he frowned slightly in his heart. He was now 1/3 of the way to becoming a saint of 3 yuan. The remaining step was to become a saint of true essence. It might be difficult, but it wasn't too difficult. But with the body, it was not much more difficult than becoming a saint of the primordial spirit. If I'm not wrong, you're on the way to becoming a saint of 3 yuan. The Crimson Dragon Saint suddenly spoke. Tianyang nodded when he heard this. From the fact that Tianyang's primordial spirit was still suppressing his cultivation and not stepping into the half-saint realm, one could tell what Tianyang was cultivating. TSK, becoming a saint of 3 yuan, and with the 2 paths you've mastered, that's 5 paths to sainthood. Although the saint of true essence is not usually included, it's still 4 paths to sainthood. It's comparable to the strongest genius of the Xiantian great world. You've already completed 1/3 of the way to becoming a saint of 3 yuan. You'll have to complete the saint of true essence yourself, but I have a way to become a saint of the physical body. Crimson Dragon Saint said. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows, revealing a look of surprise. What method? You should know that the Dragon Clan is scattered all over the Xiantian great world, but they all have the same core, right? The Crimson Dragon Saint said. Tianyang nodded. The dragon slayer he killed was also a Dragon Clan member, but he wasn't from the true dragon sacred domain. This core is the ancestral dragon godland. The ancestral dragon godland will open in a year. All the Dragon Clan and Demon Clan in the Xiantian great world will send their strongest geniuses there. There will even be young saints among them. And I can let you go to the ancestral dragon godland as the representative of the true dragon sacred domain. There are countless opportunities in the ancestral dragon godland. Maybe you'll have the opportunity to become a saint of the physical body. The Crimson Dragon Saint said. Tianyang was stunned. Won't the other Dragon Clan geniuses in the true dragon sacred domain rebel? The true dragon sacred domain is the most powerful Dragon Clan force in the spiritual state and its surrounding regions. There are 5 forces. The original plan was to have 4 Dragon Clan geniuses and 1 Jin Zhan, but you killed Bai Pengyu of the Heavenly Dragon Clan, so there's 1 free for you to replace. As for the Heavenly Dragon Saint, I'm afraid he doesn't have the courage to fight against you now. The Crimson Dragon Saint said. The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled up. Then, thank you, Crimson Dragon Saint. Even though neither of them said it out loud, they knew that this was not only a favor, but also a gamble. A gamble that Tianyang would become a saint of 3 yuan. If Tianyang succeeded, Tianyang would become the most dazzling saint in the world. After going to the Xianyuan family, he would lead the true dragon's sacred domain to become stronger and stronger. If Tianyang failed, everything would be over. However, the true dragon sacred domain would only lose a spot in the ancestral dragon godland. The 2 of them smiled tacitly. Then, the Crimson Dragon Saint walked out. Chapter 1247. After the Red Dragon Saint left, Tianyang closed his eyes and began to think. He had to go to the ancestral dragon god's land, but what to do was a problem. However, Tianyang knew too little about the ancestral dragon god's land. Although his strength was at the top of the pyramid in the Xiantian Great World, he was still far from being a true expert. He had just become a saint and did not have his own sources of information. It was normal that he did not know. I'll ask the Red Dragon Saint later. Tianyang sighed, then glanced at Ling Yuhan, who had been looking at him. Speaking of which, how did you break through to Wu Zun stage 6 so quickly? Tianyang was puzzled. When he broke through to Wu Zun stage 6, he overturned Jiangbei City, shocked Dan Sinaville, offended the Songhai sect, and the 18 bandits of Yunling, helped the Zhang family of Heavenly Dao, went to the Myriad Pill ceremony, and went into seclusion for half a year before breaking through to Wu Zun stage 6. Ling Yuhan was captured by the Snow Fox clan not long after she ascended to the Xintian Great World. Jiang Shuling and Jiang Tian being valued, the nine-tailed moon fox god's bloodline, so they were not punished at all. But it was also impossible for him to obtain some kind of natural treasure for Ling Yuhan to cultivate, right? The stronger Ling Yuhan was, the more likely it was that she could escape the control of the Snow Fox clan. If Tianyang was in the Snow Fox clan, he would not do such a thing. It's not that fast. Master left for almost a year, and I broke through to Wu Zun stage. Now, Master is at the peak of Wu Zun stage and can kill saints. I'm still at Wu Zun stage 6. Ling Yuhan said. Tianyang rubbed his temples. He had risked his life to reach the peak of Wu Zun stage. Although his cultivation was slow due to the endless spirit sea, it was not fast. However, Ling Yuhan had broken through to Wu Zun stage 6 while being locked in a cell. Comparing oneself to others could really infuriate one to death. Give me your hand. I'll show you. Although Tianyang had guessed that it was most likely the nine-tailed moon fox and nine nether saint body working together, he was still worried. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan obediently stretched out her hand. Tianyang's heart wavered for a moment as he grabbed hold of Ling Yuhan's soft hair. However, he quickly recovered and released the power of his saint realm primordial spirit. In an instant, the circulation situation of the true essence in Ling Yuhan's body was thoroughly seen through by Heavenly Sunday. This, Tianyang frowned. This primordial chi, it was so chaotic that Tianyang's brain was about to explode. So you don't have any skills at all. You relied on the Ice Emperor's heavenly sword skill, the nine-tailed moon fox bloodline, and the nine nether saint body to break through to the rank 6 martial honorable realm. Tianyang could not help but say, this primordial chi, the primordial chi in her body flowed in one direction, but that was all. There was not even a main meridian in her body. The primordial chi flowed in each meridian. It only flowed in the same direction and returned in the same direction. There was no cultivation method at all. Tianyang even suspected that if it were not for the nine-tailed moon fox and nine nether saint body, Ling Yuhan would not have been able to control the primordial chi in one direction. If it were anyone else, they would have exploded and died. You're lucky to have survived until now, Tianyang said helplessly. It was the first time he had seen such a chaotic primordial chi flow. Hearing that, Ling Yuhan smiled embarrassedly. She more or less knew what the hell she was cultivating. Well, you're lucky to have met me. If you continue to cultivate like this without a cultivation method to guide you, you'll explode and die sooner or later. Tianyang said angrily. This disciple of his was really troublesome. As a disciple, of course I have to rely on my master. Don't you think so, master? Ling Yuhan said with a smile. Tianyang could even feel Ling Yuhan's breath. Tianyang frowned slightly and pushed Ling Yuhan away. Stop fooling around. I'm looking for a cultivation method for you. Tianyang's interspatial bag contained quite a number of sage cultivation techniques. From the first 10,000 elephant saint, to Saint Song Qing, to the 9 universe saint emperor, to the great lord of heaven, to the heavens expanse temple. Tianyang did not believe that he could not find a suitable cultivation method for Ling Yuhan. As for continuing to create the Ice Emperor's Heaven Sword technique, with Tianyang's current ability, it was not impossible. However, the level of the Ice Emperor's Heaven Sword technique was too low. It was only at the heaven level. In the Tianshao Great World, it was a top choice. However, in the higher Xintian Great World, it was a complete waste of Ling Yuhan's powerful talent. However, boy, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't give your precious disciple some trash cultivation method that you don't even want. At this moment, the little golden girl's voice rang out. Tianyang's heart skipped a beat. Say it. What's the price? Take out the cultivation method that suits Yuhan the most. Anything is negotiable. Tianyang said straightforwardly. If it really did not work, he could take the opportunity that the Heaven's Expanse Temple owed him. If it still did not work, Tianyang would directly break through. Last time, he had defeated the Nine-Universe Saint Emperor. This time, his strength had improved greatly. No matter how bad it was, he could still smash the limits of the Saint stage. Price? Hearing this, the little golden girl was surprisingly silent. I don't need it. You don't need it? Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. The weapon spirit of the Heaven's Expanse Temple, who had never done anything without benefits, did not need to pay a price? Did the sun rise from the west? I don't need it. The little golden girl repeated again. However, you just have to remember this once. In the next moment, a huge stream of information rushed into Tianyang's spirit sea. With the current power of Tianyang's primordial spirit, he naturally accepted it easily. 9 Nether Frost Heaven Technique? After a cursory examination, Tianyang's entire body shook, revealing a trace of astonishment. Are you sure? This is the first cultivation technique on the list you gave me back then. When Tianyang had broken through the Heaven's Expanse divine level, the little golden girl had given him a list of treasures. However, at that time, Tianyang only needed the movement technique. As for the cultivation technique, he had only glanced at it briefly. However, he had remembered this first place. Now, the little golden girl had actually given the first cultivation technique to him for free. Why are you talking so much nonsense? The little golden girl raised her voice. Or do you want me to take your money? No. Hearing this, Tianyang chuckled and immediately shut up. It would be a waste if he did not take advantage of her. The little golden girl had gone crazy this time. Who knew if she would be stingy the next time? Then, Tianyang instantly woke up from his spirit sea and opened his hands. The power of the primordial spirit gathered crazily. In the next moment, a scroll formed completely by the power of the primordial spirit appeared in Tianyang's hands. Yuhan, this is your newest cultivation technique. Go and cultivate for a month. You're not allowed to come out for a month. If I see that your true energy is still messed up when you come out, I'll beat you up. Tianyang waved his hand and threw the invaluable cultivation technique to Ling Yuhan. Ling Yuhan caught the cultivation technique and chuckled. Then, she ran into the cultivation room and closed herself off to cultivate. In the Heaven's Expanse Temple, the little golden girl sat cross-legged. Her expression was grave, which Tianyang did not know about. In front of her, the scene of Tianyang slashing out with the heavenly sword was repeatedly played. Chapter 1248. The cultivation of the 9 Nether Frost technique was not as easy as Ling Yuhan's cultivation of the Ice Emperor's Heavenly Sword technique. After all, the Ice Emperor's Heavenly Sword technique was merely a heaven-class cultivation technique created by the Ice Emperor, who was in the Heavenly Completion stage. The 9 Nether Frost technique, on the other hand, was the most powerful cultivation technique in the Heaven's Expanse Temple. Even with Ling Yuhan's great talent, it still took him a full 3 months to cultivate the 9 Nether Frost Heaven art to a basic level. She sorted out her cultivation base and broke through to Wu Zun's 7th level. Even the Red Dragon Saint, who had seen many battles, could not help but be shocked by such a terrifying cultivation speed. As for Tianyang's injuries, he had more or less recovered in these 3 months. Moreover, his cultivation had improved by quite a bit. After all, as long as one did not die or suffer serious injuries after going through a great battle, one's strength would definitely increase after recovering. A battle of life and death was always the best way to become stronger. Master, when can we go to the ancestral dragon godland? Ling Yuhan asked. Hearing this, Tianyang shrugged. At least 7 months. The ancestral dragon godland will only open after 9 months. It's better to go 2 months in advance so that we won't waste time. It's a waste if we go too early or too late. The ancestral dragon godland was extremely far away from the true dragon, sacred domain. Even with Tianyang's current cultivation level, it would take him more than a month to reach it. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan pursed her lips. If your strength has reached the peak of Wu Zun strength in these 7 months, I might be able to bring you there. However, if not, you'll just be courting death, Tianyong said sternly. Ling Yuhan nodded. She was clear about this, so she did not insist on following Tianyong. If she went, she would only be a burden. Since she wanted to travel with Tianyong, she could not be a burden. However, for the remaining 7 months, if I just cultivate in seclusion, it will be very boring. At this moment, Tianyong suddenly thought of something and chuckled. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan tilted her head and looked at Tianyong, who had a mischievous smile on his face. She immediately felt sad for a certain someone. Tianyong was so bored that his balls hurt. He could either continue to cultivate in seclusion or find someone to kill to relieve his boredom. Go. I'll take you to find trouble. You just recovered. Why are you running out again? Meanwhile, in another castle in Crimson Dragon City, the Crimson Dragon Sage smiled bitterly as he looked helplessly at the 2 people before him, who could no longer sit still after 3 months. Although he knew that the 2 of them would definitely not stay idle, he was still a little surprised that they would start something so soon. Looking for trouble, Tianyong said casually, as if he was not seriously injured at all. This time, most of the injuries were to his inner yuan and primordial spirit. Tianyong's immortal flame had only reached the level where it could rapidly heal his physical body. It was not of much help to his inner yuan and primordial spirit. Therefore, Tianyong was still not in his best condition. Looking for trouble? The Heavenly Dragon Sage has been cultivating in seclusion at home for the past 3 months. He did not even dare to show his face. A guy who used to be a great sage and is now a peak sage has been beaten to such a state by you. You still want to look for trouble with him? The Crimson Dragon Sage's face turned solemn. Although I know that there is a huge conflict between you and the Heavenly Dragon Sage, you are only a peak Wuzun now. Even if you're a great sage, you can only be respected by the other dragon sages. It is impossible for them to allow you to attack the Heavenly Dragon Sage. Even I cannot agree to it. After all, the Heavenly Dragon Sage is the oldest sage in the True Dragon's sacred domain. He cannot die so easily. The Crimson Dragon Sage said. He had been unhappy with the Heavenly Dragon Sage for a long time, but as the leader of the True Dragon's sacred domain, he could not act on impulse. Although the Heavenly Dragon Sage was not well regarded by the upper echelons, he was still respected by the lower echelons of the True Dragon sacred domain. If the Heavenly Dragon Sage died, Tianyong would be besieged. Even a great sage like him would be in trouble. Who said that I want to kill the Heavenly Dragon Sage? Do I look like I have no sense of propriety? Tianyong raised his eyebrows. Or do you think of me as an impulsive young man? The Crimson Dragon Sage was speechless. Of these 6 words, only agitation wasn't enough. Everything else was on point, all right? The Crimson Dragon Sage still found it hard to believe that Tianyong was so powerful. He was not even 30 years old and was already a great sage. However, the Crimson Dragon Sage could only believe it. Then who are you looking for trouble with? If you're looking for trouble with your old enemies, you don't have to look for me. You can do it yourself. The Crimson Dragon Sage vaguely remembered that Tianyong had many enemies. The Medicine God sect, which had been destroyed, was one. The Banten Simeon, which he had offended not long ago, was another. There was also the 3 sage sects of the Dongling State, which he had offended in the 9-universe sky ruins. However, apart from the Banten Simeon, Tianyong did not have the desire to attack these sections. The strongest of the 3 sage sects of the Dongling State were only sages. They were not even great sages. They would bow down to Tianyong the moment they saw him. If he sought revenge on this level, wouldn't he be tarnishing the reputation of the Tianji Sword Emperor? Then what are you looking for? The Crimson Dragon Sage was also confused. Why would Tianyong be looking for him? Previously, there was a traveler from the Void Mountain near the Flowing Sky City. I thought he was too weak, so I guessed that he was not a real traveler. Or rather, he was just one of the travelers. Since that guy appeared near the Flowing Sky City, there must be someone from the Void Mountain near the True Dragon Sacred World. I want you to help me find where that person from the Void Mountain is. Tianyong chuckled softly. Upon hearing this, The Crimson Dragon Sage's expression changed. He looked at Tianyang as if he had seen a ghost. You are looking for trouble with the Void Mountain. The Void Mountain, that was a terrifying force that even the Xianyuan family could not compare to. Tianyang did not even go to the Xianyuan family now. Instead, he was looking for trouble with the Void Mountain. What the hell was going on? It's just a traveler. What's there to be afraid of? Tianyang pursed his lips. I'm asking you to help me find him. I'm not going to kill him. I'm just going to beat him up to relieve my boredom. If you don't look for him, I'll look for him myself. Don't. What if you're annoyed and want to kill him? The Crimson Dragon Sage was also afraid of Tianyang. What the hell was this? Was he so bored that he wanted to create a human? Why did he want to beat someone up now? There's no need to look for him. If the Void Mountain send a traveler nearby, they still have to inform the true dragon's sacred world. This is it. The Crimson Dragon Sage sighed and casually threw out a jade scroll. Tianyang did not even look at it and took it directly. Thank you. Then, he walked out of the castle with Ling Yuhan. With a wave of his hand, he opened a space door and flew out. Wait for someone to kill him? That was already in the past. Chapter 1249. This person from the Void Mountain is called Heizwa. Heavenly Sun revealed a look of surprise when he read the information that the Crimson Dragon Sage had given him out of desperation. Although he did not remember clearly, he knew that the person who had offended the Void Mountain was called He Yiming. Both of them had the same surname, had a 1 in their names, and were from the Void Mountain. Tianyang would never believe that the two of them were not related. This time, I have found the right person to cause trouble for. The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled up into a smile. Since this person was related to He Yiming, he might be a brother or sister. The possibility of him coming to kill him was not small. In that case, he would be one step ahead and kill him. He might even be able to catch him off guard. Master, what's wrong with He Yiming? Oh, back then, when I found out that you were forced into marriage by those idiots from the Snow Sky Fox clan, I was furious. That idiot ran over and said a lot of nonsense to me. I saw that he wanted to kill me, so I killed him instantly with my sword. Tianyang said casually. Ling Yuhan had a strange expression on her face when she heard that. Killing anyone who showed killing intent, and in such a clean and efficient manner. This was indeed her master. However, this guy is actually hiding in a forbidden area. That's interesting. Tianyang's lips curled up. Given his current power as a divine lord, there were not many people in the mysterious sky great cosmos who could match him. Perhaps Heizwa was, but before he beat him up, he could add some other things. Then let's go. I'll teach you a new sword technique. Tianyang chuckled and took Ling Yuhan with him. He executed the Vast Expanse 9 changes and flew away quickly. As Tianyang's cultivation of the Vast Expanse path deepened, the Vast Expanse 9 changes was no weaker than an ordinary divine martial. If Tianyang had chosen the supreme divine martial technique, the 9 heaven starry sky technique, he might not have achieved initial success. Forbidden grounds of the West Spirit State, Valley of Wind Extinction. 8,000 years ago, a peerless great calamity had fallen in this place, and it had been cursed by that peerless great calamity. Cold winds howled all year round, and they carried bone-corroding blood poison. Even the creatures that lived here were twisted and hideous. However, for Wu Zun's realm, this place was a forbidden land of death that they wished they could stay as far away from. However, for half-saints and saints, this place was not so terrifying. Who would have thought that this Tianyang actually went to the Snow Sky Fox clan to cause a ruckus? In a cave in the Valley of Wind Absolute, Heizwa looked at the information he had just received, and his face turned gloomy. Who would have thought that the Tianyang would have the protection of a great saint like the Crimson Dragon, wholly despite his mediocre strength? As for Tianyang defeating the 3 saints, it's most likely an exaggeration. Is the Void Mountain's current intelligence so unreliable? Heizwa took a few glances at the latest information, snorted coldly, and obliterated it into ashes. He knew that Tianyang was only a peak-stage Wu Zun with slightly stronger combat strength and many cunning tricks. He Yiming had underestimated him to the extreme, which was why he had been able to kill him. His combat strength was not worth mentioning. In the information, Tianyong was described as a terrifying figure who could be slaughtered by saints. What a joke. Even if 3 months have passed, it's still a question whether this guy can enter the half-saint realm. How could he defeat 3 saints? Last time, the Crimson Dragon Holy helped you. This time, no matter how bold the Crimson Dragon Holy is, he won't help you deal with the people of the Void Mountain. I like to see how a peak stage Wuzun can block a saint. Hees was sneered and waved his hands. At this moment, the never-ending mountain wind in the entire valley of Wind Absolute disappeared without a trace. At the bottom, the corpse of the great evil that had not rotted for the past 8,000 years started to tremble. The primordial spirit of this great evil had long been destroyed, but the body would not die so easily. If there was no external interference, it would not die even after another 8,000 years. Now, the body was trembling because of instinctive fear, the fear of the strong. 3 holy paths, and I've entered the saint realm. At this moment, my strength is not much weaker than some high-level saints of the Void Mountain. When I enter the high-level saint realm, it may not be impossible for me to fight with a saint. Tianyong, it's your honor to be my first blood to become a saint. Izwa muttered to himself. He Yiming, that useless brother, can also rest in peace. Then, He Yiming closed his mouth indifferently and stepped out of the cave. The entire valley of Wind Absolute was silent. The never-ending wind had disappeared. The ferocious roaring and sneaking sinister giant beasts and strange insects were crawling on the ground like courtiers. The crazy vines and demon flowers were as quiet as the weeds by the roadside. The entire valley of Wind Absolute was in a terrifying silence. 3 holy paths, the saber Tao of the Saint Realm, the Tao of Decay, and the Tao of Nirvana. 3 divine paths, all of which had terrifying offensive power. If one were to count the true Vitality Saint, then there would be 4 divine paths. It was enough to fight against any saint. Izwa's expression was cold and arrogant as he walked slowly toward the exit of the Valley of Wind Absolute. He did not care about Tianyong. He came out only to test his saint power. As the most powerful person in the spirit state, the Void Mountain Wanderer, he had entered the Holy Path and wanted to challenge all the powerful people in the spirit state to test his unparalleled Holy Path. Izwa, wanted to become the most powerful person in the world. Then, the first stop is the true dragon, Sacred World. Izwa's expression was cold as he looked at the opening and flew into the sky. At this moment, 2 voices suddenly entered his ears. You still don't know how to? Maybe teaching a saint martial artist is a little too much, but don't always focus on me and the sword. With your 9 nether saint body and the 9-tailed lunar fox, an ordinary saint martial artist is not a joke. Now, I will show you. Wow. Master is going to use the sword again. Frost sword. In the next moment, a terrifying sword light fell from the sky and slashed toward the valley of Wind Absolute. A terrifying chill seemed to freeze the world. At this moment, the entire exit of the valley of Wind Absolute was sealed in ice. Izwa, who had just appeared, turned into an ice cube at this moment. Who is it? Izwa struggled out of the ice, and his expression turned ferocious. Someone dared to sneak an attack on him. Someone? Above, Tianyong was also stunned. Looking at the ferocious and furious Izwa below, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. You are someone I can't afford to offend. In the next moment, there was another sword. This sword no longer sealed the world in ice, but raging flames burning sky. Chapter 1250. The extremely terrifying black flames instantly burned the entire world. The mountain range that was previously frozen by the sword was now being burned by the flames. Izwa, who had just broken out of the ice, was hit by the sword again. Izwa was about to go crazy. He had finally broken through to the Sage Realm and was about to find Tianyong to settle the score. However, he had just stepped out of the door when he was hit in the face by 2 swords. He was a genius of the Void Mountain. Break! Izwa roared angrily. A huge black saber suddenly appeared in his hand, and he slashed with it. Absolute seal. A sharp saber radiance slashed out. Instantly, a huge crack appeared in the space above. A terrifying suction force erupted from the crack in the space. It swallowed most of the power of space. In the next moment, a terrifying saber chi swept out and raged wildly. It destroyed and extinguished the remaining flames. What remained was a massive blade light that slashed viciously at the heavenly sun. Interesting. Seeing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and smiled slightly. He stretched out his right hand without releasing any of his true origin. Boom! This saber slashed hard on Tianyang's palm. At this moment, a huge wound appeared on Tianyang's palm. However, the strange thing was a strange flame suddenly burned on the wound, and in just a breath, the wound caused by the saint's saber disappeared without a trace. What's going on? Seeing this, Heezua's expression changed drastically. How could this be? Although he did not use all his strength in this attack, it was still at the level of an ordinary sage's attack. Not only did he not immediately kill this guy, but the injuries he inflicted were actually healed in an instant. What kind of monster was this? Indeed, although his attack power is enough to fight with a sage at the peak, his defense power is enough to break through the defense of an ordinary sage. If it weren't for the undying divine flame, I would have died countless times already. Tianyang muttered to himself as he looked at the wound that had disappeared. After the battle with the Snow Sky Fox clan, Tianyang also understood his biggest flaw. In terms of offense, he had the 10,000 Mammoths Annihilation and various Saint martial arts. He even had the Sky Cloud Sword as his second martial soul. Not to mention a peak saint, even a great saint could exchange a few blows with it. Furthermore, he had a powerful essence, soul, mystic technique like the God-piercing saber. But what was fatal was the defense. True essence was too weak. Even if the true essence cultivated by the divine desolate heavenly spirit technique was far from what an ordinary cultivation technique could compare to, it was still too weak in the face of a terrifying existence that was one realm higher. His physical body was only at the level of a half-saint. Tianyang was like a broken sword. His attack power was strong, but as long as there was a strong enough attack, the broken sword could be shattered. Looks like the trip to the ancestral dragon godland is a must. Tianyang sighed. His hands continued to blast out, neutralizing Heezua's attacks one after another. Damn bastard. As Tianyang's essence soul was too strong, Heezua could not sense what Tianyang looked like. At this moment, he could only watch as his attacks were continuously destroyed. That person did not seem to be serious at all. How dare you look down on me? You're courting death. 8 blades of the wind god. Heezua roared. His figure instantly disappeared from the spot like a gust of wind, breaking away from Tianyang's senses. Tianyang's expression changed slightly. When he regained his senses, a terrifying killing intent suddenly appeared beside him. 8 blades of the wind god. The first blade, a green blade light, came from above and slashed towards Tianyang's back. Tianyang's expression did not change. He took a step forward and activated the boundless path. His figure instantly disappeared from a spot. Trying to run? Seeing this, Heezua's face revealed a cold smile. If the 8 blades of the wind god were so simple, I would be ashamed of myself. The blade light seemed to have passed through the folded space. It suddenly twisted and appeared in front of Tianyang again. Running? Hearing this, Tianyang shook his head. I just don't want to hurt anyone. Immediately after, he unsheathed the great void sword embryo in his hand and slashed. Boom! The unparalleled power of the Saint Realm Sword Principle was like a raging beast that instantly cut the saber in half. So powerful! Seeing this, Heezua's eyes narrowed and he was in disbelief. This person, from his voice, seemed very young. How could he be so powerful? Moreover, how could he find out where he was and kill his way here? However, Heezua, am not that easy to deal with. Heezua roared, and his figure disappeared again. 8 blades of the wind god, the second blade. Tianyang did not even turn his head. He slashed out with his sword, and the blade light that came from behind disappeared. 8 blades of the wind god, the third blade. Tianyong did not even open his eyes. He slashed out with his sword, and the blade light shattered again. 8 blades of the wind god, the fourth blade. With a slash of his sword, 10,000 blades were destroyed. Damn it! After slashing out 7 blades consecutively, even Izwa, who was a sage, had used up 50 to 60% of his true origin energy. If it was an advanced sage, he would have used up too much of his true origin energy and was panting heavily. However, the monster in front of him, 7 blades, were 7 swords. Every sword move was so effortless. If it wasn't for the fact that Izwa didn't use his full strength to injure the other party, Izwa would have thought that it was a saint who wasn't happy with him and came to tease him. Ling Yuhan, who was at the side, saw Tianyong's every stroke. She seemed to be enlightened. Every stroke was precise and natural. There was no wastage at all. It was as if it was made by the heavens. Although I don't know who you are, how dare you be so arrogant in my territory? You can only die. 8 blades of the wind god, the 8th blade, Swift Gale Wildblade. Izwa roared ferociously. His sage true origin energy was completely unleashed. As he slashed out, it seemed to contain a supreme concept. Izwa's face immediately turned pale. Even for him, using the 8th blade of the 8 blades of the wind god would consume a lot of his true origin energy. Tianyong's expression changed slightly. Strong winds danced, and strong wind soared. Countless blade light filled Tianyong's surroundings. It was not a territory, but it was even stronger than a territory. Not bad. This stroke is finally worthy of being called a god. Tianyong smiled slightly. At this moment, Izwa's pupils contracted, and he roared again. Swift Gale, Sage Slaying. Countless terrifying and violent blade lights viciously slashed at Heavenly Sun. Boom! Tianyong did not move at all. He stood on the spot and allowed the terrifying Swift Gale Wild Blade to slash his body. His strong physical body, which was the embryonic form of the body of the Dragon Emperor, was crazily slashed, and blood splattered everywhere. However, under the undying divine flame, these were at most superficial wounds. Furthermore, they were completely healed in an instant. What kind of monster is this? The genius of the Void Mountain is indeed very strong. At this moment, Tianyong suddenly spoke. At this moment, Izwa's expression changed. You know that I am the second person of the Void Mountain? At this moment, Tianyong's primordial spirit power suddenly bloomed. At this moment, the countless gale blades around him suddenly stopped moving. At the same time, the immortal divine fire and the true destructive flames burned, turning the entire sky into a sea of fire. The 8th blade of the 8 blades of the wind god, the Swift Gale Wild Blade, broke. You, who exactly are you? Haven't you been looking for me? Tianyong smiled slightly. Hearing this, Izwa's body shook, and his eyes shone with disbelief. Chapter 12:51. You are Tianyong. Izwa exclaimed in disbelief. He did not expect that the first person he wanted to kill after entering the sage state would appear in front of him. Furthermore, Tianyong had come to the Valley of Wind Absolute in a way that was above him. The information that I received earlier was correct. Izwa was indeed a member of the Void Mountain. He immediately recalled the information that he did not care about previously. He fought against the 3 Grand Elders of the Snow Sky Fox Clan alone and defeated them. Even if he had the help of the Red Dragon Sage, how could Tianyong do it if he did not have powerful abilities? Previously, he had underestimated Tianyong and thought that he was fake. Run. Although his strongest killing move was not the 8 blades of the Wind God, it was not much weaker than the 8 blades of the Wind God. Now that the person in front of him was Tianyong, he would not let him go no matter what. Instantly, Izwa activated the Gale Path and dashed towards the Valley of Wind Absolute. Since the information from the Snow Sky Fox clan was correct, Tianyong definitely had the power of a peak sage. He might be slightly weaker, but he was definitely not that weak. Instead of running away from an unfamiliar place, he would rather run towards the Valley of Wind Absolute, where he had lived for a long time. Tianyong was not like him. Not only did this valley of Winju have the een wind and poisonous gas brought about by the fall of a peerless great calamity, it also had a tangled and complicated terrain. Even if it was his first time here, he was almost confused. Yizhua did not expect to confuse Tianyang. As long as he could confuse Tianyang, that would be enough. You are really decisive. Upon hearing this, Tianyang chuckled. He activated the vast expanse 9 changes and chased after Yizhua with Ling Yuhan. Since he was here to beat him up, how could he let him escape before he even attacked? There are many forks in the road ahead. Once I take the wrong path, I will be going down the wrong path. Looking at the forks in front of him, Yizhua was elated. He formed a seal with his hands, and his true origin instantly condensed. Around him, dozens of Yizhua with the same appearance and aura suddenly appeared and flew towards the dozens of forks in the road. Furthermore, there was more than one clone at each fork. This way, even those alchemy sages with powerful primordial spirits might not be able to find Yizhua's real body. Multiple shadow clone technique. Seeing this, Tianyang was slightly taken aback, then revealed a faint smile. This method might be useful against saints with the power of the primordial spirit at the peak of the half-saint realm. However, it was useless for Tianyang, whose primordial spirit had entered the saint realm. It was not only the shadow doppelganger technique, but also the terrain of the Valley of Wind Absolute. Tianyang's speed wasn't slow. Instead, he sped up and charged towards Yizhua's true body. This fellow actually guessed correctly. Seeing this, Yizhua's expression changed greatly. He made his move once again, causing countless saber intents to fly behind him. Yuhan, go practice. Tianyang didn't attack immediately. Instead, he smiled faintly and stepped aside. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan was also startled. Then, she nodded her head. As Ling Yuhan's original sword had been shattered by the Snow Sky Fox clan, Ling Yuhan could only condense her true vitality into a sword at this moment. However, with the 9 Netherfrost skill, the 9-tailed Moon Fox, and the terrifying power of the 9 Nether Saint body, the sword that was condensed was not much weaker than an ordinary supreme spiritual weapon. She swung her sword. Ice Emperor's Heaven Sword skill, 5th sword. Ling Yuhan shouted loudly. Wu Zun's true vitality, which was at LV7, exploded instantly, although she hadn't used a sword for more than a year. However, at this moment, the countless battles in the Tianshao Great World appeared in Ling Yuhan's body again. She swung her sword. The power was completely focused on one point. A ray of sword radiance cut across the void and slashed out fiercely. Boom! This ray of sword radiance violently bombarded one of the hundreds of saber intents and shattered with a loud bang. That said, the saber light was actually shattered. Not bad. Seeing this, the corners of Tianyang's mouth curled up. With one move, he obliterated the remaining saber radiance. The gap between Wu Zun's LV7 and a sage was extremely huge. Even Tianyang had to use all his strength to block the power of the sage in the 9 Universe Sky Ruins. However, that was the full power of the sage's attack. Now, it was just a casual move by Yizhua to buy time. However, Ling Yuhan's performance was already very good. Well then, let's see how your master performs next. Tianyang smiled slightly and let Ling Yuhan stay where she was. In the next moment, a ray of light flashed across his eyes. In an instant, Tianyang's speed broke through the limit, and he charged fiercely toward Yizhua. What? Yizhua, who had thought that he had successfully stalled Tianyang, suddenly felt a terrifying airflow behind him and hurriedly turned around to look. The moment he saw it, his expression instantly changed. What kind of terrifying speed was this? The terrain of the Valley of Wind Absolute did not affect Tianyang at all. 8 blades of the Wind God. First blade. Yizhua roared angrily, and the black blade in his hand shone brightly. He slashed out, and the blade light raged. However, it was useless. Tianyang did not even dodge and allowed the blade to slash his body. With the undying flame, what was there to be afraid of? However, when Yizhua slashed out, his speed of escape slowed down. Tianyang did not manage to stall for time as he had expected. As a result, Tianyong successfully closed in on Hiizwa in just a few breaths. Damn it! Seeing this, Hiizwa's expression changed drastically. He wanted to activate the life-saving talisman, but Tianyong had already used the power of the sage primordial spirit to seal everything about Hiizwa. Get back! Tianyong directly grabbed Hiizwa's neck, turned around, and threw him. Hiizwa instantly shot out like a cannonball. A few minutes later, he landed on the ground of the Valley of Wind Absolute with his face on the ground. Kill me. Don't humiliate me. Tianyong, kill me if you want to. Hiizwa wanted to continue escaping, but he realized that his cultivation had been sealed by Tianyong. His face was instantly filled with rage as he roared. I won't do anything you want me to do. Don't worry, I won't kill you. Tianyong immediately came in front of Hiizwa. He looked at Ling Yuhan, who was not far away, and said with a chuckle, Yuhan, seal your cultivation and spar with this guy, Yi Futian said. Ling Yuhan and Hiizwa were both stunned. Hiizwa's expression changed instantly. You want me to be a sparring partner for Wu Zun? Hiizwa will die. Even if I die outside, I won't be a sparring partner for the ant Wu Zun, even if I jump down from here. Do you think it's more comfortable to roast your primordial spirit with the spiritual fire, or to feed you pills and let you die again and again? Give me the saber. It's fine if you don't give it to me. I'll just take a tree branch. When do we start? Hiizwa's expression suddenly became extremely serious as he said this. Ling Yuhan, who was standing at the side, was speechless. Chapter 1252. As a disciple of the Void Mountain, Hiizwa naturally could not be used by Tianyong as a sparring partner. Tianyong had only let Hiizwa spar for a month before asking him to scram. As for killing him, Yiming had a grudge against him, but Hiizwa did not. Even if Hiizwa did, he would still be punished for sparring with Ling Yuhan for a month and being beaten up hundreds of times by Tianyong. Unknowingly, 6 months passed in the Jinlong sacred world. Finally, my injuries are completely healed. It was easy to deal with the huge deficit in his vital essence. It was nothing more than stuffing all kinds of treasures and swallowing all kinds of spiritual energy of heaven and earth to fill his boundless spirit sea. Between this consumption and recovery, Tianyong discovered that his vital essence had become purer and purer. As for his primordial spirit, it was not so easy. After all, Tianyong had just broken through to the essence soul, Holy Lord realm not long ago. His primordial spirit cultivation had not been consolidated to an extremely stable state. Moreover, he had consumed so much in the battle with the Snow Sky Fox clan. It took him 4 to 5 months to fully recover the power of his primordial spirit. It took him another 3 to 4 months to fully recover the internal injuries of his primordial spirit and consolidate his primordial spirit realm. Like his vital essence, his primordial spirit had also become much stronger in this battle. If there was another battle with the Snow Sky Fox clan, Tianyong would not be in such a sorry state. So, does the Heavenly Dragon Holy Lord have any objections this time? Tianyong glanced at the Red Dragon Holy Lord and chuckled. Back then, they had taken the initiative to kick the Heavenly Dragon Holy Lord out of the ancestral land of the Dragon God. The Heavenly Dragon Holy Lord himself did not know about it. It was only when the Dragon Holy Lord held the Dragon Holy Lord Conference that the Heavenly Dragon Holy Lord realized that he had been kicked out from the beginning. Of course there is, but when I said that the slot belonged to you, there was no more. The Red Dragon Holy Lord chuckled. Upon hearing this, Tianyong also nodded. That was probably the case. After the Divine Essence Grotto Heaven, Tianyong had broken through to the Essence Divine Lord realm, which had already made the Heaven Dragon Sacred Lord extremely fearful. Later on, news of Tianyong's display of invincible might on the Snow Sky Sacred Mountain and severely injuring the 3 supreme elders of the Snow Sky Fox clan came to the Heavenly Dragon Sacred Mountain. The apprehension in the Heavenly Dragon Sacred Mountain turned into fear. After all, Tianyong was able to injure the Grand Elder of the Snow Sky Fox clan. At the same time, he could also severely injure him, or even kill him. In the end, the ancestral dragon godland wasn't as important as one's own life. Furthermore, the Heavenly Dragon Clan really didn't have any outstanding geniuses. Bai Pengyu was already dead, and Bai Pengxing was scared out of his wits by Tianyang. As for the other geniuses of the Heavenly Dragon Clan, it would be better to let Ling Yuhan do it than let them do it. Therefore, the Heavenly Dragon Saint could only suffer in silence. Once the meeting ended, he immediately left. However, the look in the Heavenly Dragon Saint's eyes wasn't right. Perhaps he's going to play some tricks on you. The Red Dragon Saint reminded. As Tianyang's strength and talent improved, the Red Dragon Saint also paid more attention to his son's big brother. Now, the gamble of the ancestral Dragon Godland still required Tianyang's participation. The future of the true Dragon Sacred Domain was closely related to Tianyang. The Red Dragon Saint naturally had to be concerned about Tianyang's safety. I know, Tianyang nodded. Since the Heavenly Dragon Saint was able to use the demon growing seal in the Divine Origin Utopia, there was a possibility that he was going to play some tricks in the ancestral Dragon Godland. However, Tianyang didn't care. He didn't even care if the Heavenly Dragon Saint personally went to deal with him, not to mention that the Heavenly Dragon Saint himself couldn't go. The ancestral Dragon Godland had a restriction of 3,000 years old and below. The Dragon Clan needed a few hundred years to hatch. After hatching, they would often go into seclusion. Therefore, even though Qiying Tian was more than 1,000 years old now, his mentality was the same as a 20 to 30-year-old youth. That's good. The Red Dragon Saint smiled when he heard that. The people going to the ancestral Dragon Godland this time are all familiar faces. Qi Yingtian, Jin Zhan, Lan Ji, and a genius from the Earth Dragon Clan. It's not Huang Long, but Huang Long's elder brother, Huang Yun. With you, there shouldn't be any conflicts, the Red Dragon Saint said. Upon hearing that, Tianyang nodded slightly. After all, he would most likely be acting alone in the ancestral Dragon Godland. His teammates weren't very important to Tianyang. He had been in the Xintian Great World for a few years and was used to acting alone. Then, Yuhan, you have to cultivate well. You'd better learn the Saint Realm Sword principle that I demonstrated to you before I return. Tianyang turned his head and said to Ling Yuhan, who looked unwilling to accept the outcome. He Yizhuo was indeed a genius of the Void Mountain. Although he cultivated the Saber principle, he was still able to kill Ling Yuhan. However, every time he Yizhuo was about to win, he would be sent flying by Tianyang's finger. Ling Yuhan's sword principle also became stronger and stronger as she continued to train with him. Unfortunately, she had only scratched the surface of the Saint Realm Sword principle. If she wanted to act together with Tianyang, she had to at least completely comprehend the Saint Realm Sword principle. Her cultivation was only at the peak of Wu Zun's 7th realm. Even with the help of 3 powerful helpers, she couldn't speed up her cultivation. She would only be a burden if she went to the ancestral Dragon Godland with Tianyang. Yes, Ling Yuhan said loudly. Then, she took the peak half-saint long sword that Tianyang had plundered from various sages' legacies back to cultivate. She had never been so eager to become stronger. Only by becoming stronger could she catch up with Tianyang's footsteps. Due to the Snow Sky Fox clan, Ling Yuhan hadn't cultivated this year. The gap between them was getting bigger and bigger. Only by cultivating crazily could she possibly close the gap. TSK, how enviable. The Crimson Dragon Sage clicked his tongue in admiration as he looked at Ling Yuhan, who had returned to cultivate diligently. All right, let's not delay any longer. We can set off now. Red Dragon Saint said. Tianyang nodded and stepped out of the Red Dragon Castle with Red Dragon Saint. Outside Red Dragon City, the geniuses heading to the ancestral Dragon Godland were already prepared. They were Qi Yingtian and Jin Zhan, who had already stepped into the half-saint realm and were at the intermediate level. There was also Huang Yun, a half-saint from the Earth Dragon clan, and Lan Ji, who had 1 foot in the half-saint realm. Let's go now, Tianyang said. Red Dragon Saint nodded and waved his hand. A huge spatial spiritual boat appeared in front of everyone. This is the Red Dragon clan's sage spiritual boat, Red Dragon Heavenly Boat. Although the ancestral dragon god land is located in the northern wilderness desert and is extremely far from the spiritual state, we can still reach it quickly. Red Dragon Saint said. Everyone nodded and stepped into the Red Dragon heavenly boat. Tianyong secretly activated the embryonic form of the body of the Dragon Emperor. Soon, he would become a saint with the three essences. He would kill his way to the Xianyuan family. Linger, for this trip to the ancestral dragon god land, the powerful demons can also enter. If I'm not wrong, I should be able to meet Tianyong this time. Northern spiritual state, snow, sky, divine mountain. Jiang Tianbing's face was filled with resentment as he looked at Jiang Shuling, who had walked out of the snow god temple's land of inheritance. Hearing the two words, heavenly son, Jiang Shuling's indifferent eyes revealed a glimmer of light. Got it. I'll fight for the ancestral dragon god land this time. Jiang Shuling nodded and stepped into the spiritual boat, flying toward the northern wilderness desert. On the snow sky divine mountain, Jiang Tianbing looked at the spiritual boat with a complicated expression. Ever since that battle, Jiang Shuling had taken the initiative to accept the snow god's inheritance. The snow god's inheritance was extremely dangerous. Even when Jiang Tianbing was young, he was almost killed and failed. Fortunately, Jiang Shuling succeeded. Her cultivation did not change, but her strength increased tremendously. However, her temperament also became extremely cold. Chapter 1253. The Northern Wilderness Desert. It was one of the most powerful regions in the entire Xintian Great World, along with the Eastern Divine Land, Western Buddha Pure Land, and Southern Devil Land. The first place would always belong to the Central Divine Land, while the second and third places were constantly contested between the Northern Wilderness Desert and the Southern Devil Land. Even the Eastern Divine Land could only be ranked behind the Northern Wilderness Desert, which showed how powerful the Northern Wilderness Desert was. Everything within a radius of millions of miles was covered in ice. The sky and earth were white, and everything was covered in snow. This is the Northern Wilderness Desert, the origin of the Dragon Clan, the ancestral land of the Dragon God. Even the Crimson Dragon Saint could not help but feel a surge of emotion when he saw this vast expanse of heaven and earth. This was the origin of all the Dragon Clan and the ancestral land of the Dragon God. Since we've stepped into the Northern Wilderness Desert, the ancestral land of the Dragon God is not far away. Because the ancestral land of the Dragon God is too powerful, not only the Dragon Clan, but also some monster clans and humans. Therefore, they're not only the Dragon Clan, but also some monster clans and humans in the ancestral land of the Dragon God. The monster clans are mostly monster clans, the Red Dragon Saint said. Hearing this, everyone except Tianyong nodded. Chi Ing Tian looked indignant. What does the ancestral land of the Dragon Clan have to do with the monster clans and humans? It's just strength. At this time, Huang Yun, who had been silent, said, although the Dragon Clan is powerful, they are too scattered. As a result, the ancestral land of the Dragon God has been forcefully taken by other clans. If the Dragon Clan is united, then the monster clans and humans will have to submit to the Dragon Clan, Huang Yun said. Hearing this, Tianyong looked at Huang Yun again. What an idealist. Since the Dragon Clan stepped out of the Northern Wilderness Desert, they had been scattered. It was good enough that they could maintain contact with each other. United? Whoever was the boss would be at the bottom. Moreover, the monster clans and humans were also scattered. The monster clans were even more divided than the Dragon Clan. At least, the Dragon Clan was harmonious with each other. The monster clans did not attack each other directly when they saw different monster clans. However, Tianyong did not want to act with this group of people this time. They could say whatever they wanted. There are other spiritual boats around us. Jean Jean suddenly spoke. Hearing this, everyone turned to look outside. Sure enough, the originally empty and boundless sky seemed to have suddenly appeared, and many flying boats appeared. Looking at the situation, without exception, they were all heading towards the ancestral Dragon Godland. Although the real Dragon Sacred World only got 5 places and the other forces got fewer places, there are still many forces from the Dragon Tribe in the Xintian macro world, including the demon race and the human race. There are probably thousands of people who have entered the ancestral dragon godland. Therefore, don't think that you can do whatever you want just because the ancestral dragon godland is big. The Crimson Dragon Saint warned. Hearing this, everyone nodded. There were thousands of people who had entered the ancestral land of the dragon gods. Even if there were only a few hundred or a few dozen of them, once they encountered an opportunity, they could still fight to the death. Everyone was well aware of this point. Then, we have arrived at the ancestral land of the dragon god. At this moment, the Scarlet Dragon heavenly ship came to a stop. Below them, a huge group of ruins appeared before everyone's eyes. It was countless times bigger than the Scarlet Dragon City. As for its grandeur, it was countless times bigger than any building in the real dragon sacred world. This is the ancestral dragon ruins, and the ancestral dragon ruins is the only way to enter the ancestral dragon godland. If I am not wrong, someone has already arrived. The Crimson Dragon Saint said. In the next moment, the Scarlet Dragon heavenly ship landed. Tianyang and the others also walked out. The Crimson Dragon Saint took a look at the ancestral dragon ruins and left with the Scarlet Dragon heavenly ship. The Xintian macro world had a rule that the ancestral dragon godland could not have beings above the Saint realm. This was an unwritten rule, and the Crimson Dragon Saint was one of the people who had made it. Naturally, it cannot be broken. However, before the Crimson Dragon Saint left, he took a look at Tianyang. Probably no one had thought of this back then. In this world, there would be origin Saint realm, saints below the age of 3,000. Isn't this young Tian? At this moment, a surprise greeting came from his side. Tianyang was startled and turned to look. He saw a huge man about 8 feet tall and 8 feet wide walking toward him. Tianyang's face showed a trace of surprise. Huang CK, it really is Yang Tian. The huge man was also stunned. He had thought Tianyang's back looked familiar, so he tried to greet him. He did not expect that it really was Tianyang. Why did you change your face? Huang CK remembered that Tianyang did not have this face when he was in the immortality realm. I have something to do, but you have also come to the ancestral dragon godland? Although it could not be said that he had met an old friend in a foreign land, Tianyang was still rather happy to have met someone who looked familiar. The tall, ferocious-looking guy in front of him was the demon that Tianyang had met when he had accepted Qin Bufan's invitation to help the immortality realm fight in the arena. The descendant of the Great Wilderness bloodline, the famous Great Wilderness divine hound in Dongxin Prefecture, Huang CK. I just received the bloodline of the Great Wilderness bloodline, and my strength improved greatly. The clan despised me for being useless in Dongxin Prefecture, so they sent me to the ancestral dragon godland to gain experience. Huang CK said with a smile. However, the aura he exuded was much stronger than before. Back then, although Huang CK was powerful, he was only a rank 5 martial honorable. But now, Huang CK had stepped into the half-saint realm, and his level was not low. He was probably a mid-level half-saint. He was equivalent to Qi, Yingtian, and Jinzhan. Tianyang could faintly sense the terrifying aura hidden in the depths of Huang CK's bloodline, like that of a primordial beast, a dragon of the true dragon sacred domain. At this moment, a cold voice sounded from his side. Qi Yingtian and the others were still focused on Huang CK when they suddenly heard a voice behind them. Just as they turned around, Lan Ji's pupils shrank as a kick landed on his back. His entire body was kicked away, and he spat out blood. As expected, the information is correct. The true dragon's sacred domain is full of trash this time. Lan Ji, Qi Yingtian's expression changed drastically, and he instantly used a movement technique to catch Lan Ji. However, although Lan Ji was not seriously injured by the sudden attack, he had lost the ability to fight. Who are you? Jinzhan's expression turned ugly at this moment. The person who attacked was tall, but much thinner than Huang CK. His face was handsome, but there was a hint of evil in it. The most eye-catching thing was that this person's eyes were blue, and his ears were like those of the sea race. There were also 2 strangely shaped dragon horns on his head. Me, Hai Tian of the Azure Sea Dragon Race. Chapter 1254. Sea Dragon Clan, High Tion. The tall youth looked at the geniuses of the true dragon sacred domain with disdain. Hearing this, the expressions of Chi, Tion, and the others changed drastically. Sea Dragon Clan? Huang CK's expression changed as well. He looked at the tall young man with a grave expression. He explained when he saw Tianyang's puzzled expression. The Sea Dragon Clan is different from the ordinary Sea Dragon Clan. Some sea dragons are called sea dragons, but most of them live on land. The Sea Dragon Clan, on the other hand, lives in the sea. Only 45% of the Xintian Great World is made up of land. The other 50% is made up of the sea. The remaining 5% is made up of all kinds of dangerous places. The Sea Dragon Clan, on the other hand, lives in half of the Xintian Great World Sea. The battles in the sea are crueler than those on land. After all, some of the deep-sea races are as strong as the Sea Dragon Clan. The winner takes all. The battles in the sea are much crueler than those on land. In the end, the Sea Dragon Clan won and became one of the overlords of the sea. Therefore, the Sea Dragon Clan is recognized as one of the strongest dragon clans. Even the true dragon sacred domain can't compare to them. Tianyang's expression changed slightly when he heard this. Competition was for the sake of elimination. Survival of the fittest was the law of nature. The Sea Dragon Clan was able to stand out among the countless races in the sea. It was obvious how powerful the Sea Dragon Clan was. It was like raising poisonous insects. Countless poisonous insects were placed in a small space to kill each other. The one that survived in the end would be the most powerful poisonous insect king among the countless poisonous insects. The Sea Dragon Clan was the same. It wasn't surprising that High Tion of the Sea Dragon tribe had the cultivation of a high-level half-saint. Damn it! Chi Tion clenched his teeth when he found out that High Tion was from the Sea Dragon Clan. He was the strongest genius of the true dragon sacred domain. There was no doubt about his talent. However, he was only a little over 1,000 years old. Those who had come to the true dragon sacred world were all geniuses who were extremely close to the age limit of 3,000 years. Even though he was extremely talented, he had cultivated for 1,000 years less than the others. Jin Zhan, on the other hand, had spent too much energy cultivating dual saintly ways. As a result, he was only a mid-level half-saint now. Although he wasn't weak, he was still lacking in front of High Tion, a high-level half-saint from the Sea Dragon tribe. So, why would a weak force like the true dragon's sacred domain come to the ancestral dragon godland? I'm afraid they're here because they're ashamed to face their ancestors. When High Tion saw that not a single dragon in the entire true dragon sacred world's team responded, he immediately revealed a victorious cold smile. The dragons that lived in the sea had always looked down on the dragons that lived on land. The one that was sent flying by me before was a sea dragon. As a sea dragon, his name has the word sea in it, yet he's associated with a land dragon. It's really sad. High Tion laughed wantonly. Hearing this, Lanji's face also revealed a trace of rage. And within this rage, there is a strong sense of unwillingness. He hated himself for having such low talent and for not working hard on his cultivation. Until now, he hadn't even stepped into the half-saint realm. The moment he arrived, he was sent flying by a sea dragon tribe member. Moreover, he was sent flying by a merciful kick. With High Tion's strength as a high-level half-saint, it wouldn't be a problem for him to kick Lanji to death, let alone send him flying. The reason why Lanji didn't die was because High Tion had shown mercy. However, because of this, Lanji was also extremely unwilling. He had been humiliated, yet he felt lucky that the other party had shown mercy. Do you need my help? At this moment, Tianyang spoke up. High Tion was just a high-level half-saint. He could even easily kill Jiang Shuling, a peak half-saint who controlled the mysterious power of the snow goddess, let alone a high-level half-saint from the Sea Dragon tribe. Human tribe? Since when did the true dragon's sacred domain degenerate to the point of needing the help of humans? There's a demon tribe member beside you? TSK. The true dragon's sacred domain has regressed over the years. Even the ant-like humans and filthy demon tribe members can make friends with you. Tian looked down at Tianyang and Huang Ck and sneered. He had been waiting in the ancestral dragon ruins for a long time. Finally, he saw a group of land dragons. Naturally, he didn't hesitate to humiliate them. When he saw Tianyang and Huang Ck, he didn't show any mercy. In his eyes, those who mixed with the land dragons were just as useless as the land dragons. Why? Because Tian was strong, arrogant, and arrogant. He naturally despised the land dragons. No, big brother, we land dragons will handle this matter ourselves. At this moment, Qi Yingtian spoke up. His eyes were burning with anger. He had just arrived, and this Tian had already taken him down a notch. Although they were both from the dragon tribe, Qi Yingtian felt that this Tian was even more hateful than the enemies he had encountered before. Mid-level half-saint? You want to stand out for a mid-level half-saint? Fine, I'll let you have 3 moves. Tian looked at Qi Yingtian in surprise. A trace of contempt appeared at the corner of his mouth. Red Dragon Flaming Fist. Qi Yingtian didn't hold back. With a roar, the flames of the red dragon burned fiercely and merged into his fist. He punched out. Boom! An incomparably terrifying fist mark instantly erupted. It was like a furious dragon's roar, fiercely bombarding Tian's chest. However, Tian seemed to have turned into liquid. In an instant, countless water vapor boiled and completely offset the power of the fist. Apart from a slight change in expression, there was nothing else. How was this possible? Seeing this, Qi Yingtian's face was filled with disbelief. His red dragon flaming fist couldn't even move Tian a bit. 2 more moves. Tian smiled disdainfully. He narrowed his eyes, revealing only a little of his eyeballs. He looked at Qi Yingtian with disdain. Dragon King's finger. Qi Yingtian roared again. Dragon power burned, and the flames of the red dragon erupted again. When he pointed out with his finger, it was as if the phantom of a dragon king followed him like a shadow. However, this finger fell on Tian's body. All that was left behind were streaks of mist. At most, there was a tinge of blood. Apart from that, there was still nothing. Dragon-slaying sword. At this moment, Jin Zhan suddenly appeared on Tian's side and slashed out with his sword. Tian was stunned, but he immediately counterattacked. Boom! Jin Zhan was directly sent flying by Tian's palm, and the sword slashed on Tian's body, leaving a bloody mark. 1 mark. 3 moves have passed, that's all. Tian smiled coldly and took a step forward. Brother, why are you here? I've been looking for you for a long time. At this moment, a delicate voice suddenly sounded from behind Tian, and Tian was suddenly shrouded by a huge shadow. The moment this voice appeared, Huang Ck's expression suddenly changed. Who is it? Tian's expression changed slightly, and he hurriedly looked back. Who is this person? He's blocking Keek's path. Facing him was a huge palm the size of a palm leaf fan. Boom! Chapter 1255. Boom! The sound of bones breaking could be heard from Tian's body. At the same time, Tian spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying by a slap. Qi Yingtian and Jin Zhan, who were preparing to defend against Tian's next attack, were stunned. Looking at Tian, who was flying away, they didn't know what to say. In the next moment, the same black shadow appeared above the 2 dragons. The 2 dragons also looked up at the same time. In the next moment, they were stunned on the spot. Except for Huang Ck, everyone, including Tianyang, looked at the black shadow, speechless for a long time. Previously, Tianyang described Huang Ck as 8 feet tall and 8 feet wide, which was indeed a bit exaggerated. However, the black shadow in front of them, the height was at least 9 meters taller than Huang Ck by a head. As for the width, it was probably at least 2 meters. The 2 bare arms were as strong as pillars, with terrifying muscles coiling around them. There was no need to even think about it to know what kind of explosive power was contained in these arms. The clothes were still bulging from the explosive muscles, as if the clothes could burst at any time. His face was still all right, more or less delicate and pretty. However, this kind of real tough and stocky body coupled with that delicate and pretty face was simply off the charts. What made Tianyang suck in a breath of cold air was that this person was wearing a pink dress. Brother, why did you leave me behind as soon as you came to the ancestral dragon ruins? Kiki is so sad. As for the Black Shadow, after discovering Huang's CK, it immediately ran over. Tianyang was so scared that he jumped to the side. He wasn't afraid, but the earth shook when it ran, which made him a little scared. I told you to stay put. Why are you running around? At this time, Huang CK frowned. Then, he looked at the group of dragons who looked as if they had seen a ghost. Huang CK smiled bitterly and said, "This is my sister, Huang Kiki." Gulp. Chi Ingtian swallowed a mouthful of saliva and took a step back. Brother Huang CK, are you sure this isn't your brother? Not to mention other things, just this body alone could crush 5 Chi Ingtian to death. Chi Ingtian couldn't believe that this person in front of him was a girl. Seriously, people say that everywhere I go. I'm a pure girl. At that moment, Huang Kiki turned around and looked at Chi Ingtian with a reproachful expression as she coquettishly said, "To be honest, Huang Coco's looks were not bad. If it was just based on her face, there was nothing wrong with this sentence. But the key point was, even the tallest person in the true dragon sacred world, Huang Yun, was only 1 meters tall. If one wanted to look at the face of the 9 meters tall Huang Kiki, they would have to raise their heads. If she looked straight ahead, she could only see the outline of his 8-pack abs. My little sister's bloodline is a bit strange. When she was very young, she unleashed the power of the great desolate bloodline, causing her body to mutate a little. That's why she's like this. However, my younger sister's strength is not bad. She's already at the peak of the middle level of the half-saint realm. If she fully unleashes the power of the desolation bloodline, she won't have any problem facing a high-level half-saint." Huang CK smiled bitterly. Hearing this, everyone could only nod. Although this was a cute girl who could crush 10 of them with one hand, she was still a girl in the end. As a group of men, it was not good for them to say anything. Damn it! At this moment, Hai Tian, who had been sent flying by the slap, suddenly got up and glared at Huang Kiki. His eyes were filled with rage. Where did this monster come from? How dare you attack the Outer Sea Dragon clan, Hai Tian? In the next moment, Hai Tian roared furiously, and his draconic energy erupted from his body as he formed seals with both hands. Vast Ocean Wave Seal. A series of mysterious seals were rapidly condensed by Hai Tian, and behind him, there seemed to be a terrifying wave of sea. It blotted out the sky and was incomparably huge. Tyrannical, draconic energy of the vast ocean was also released. The terrifying aura of a high-level half-saint erupted. Is this the strength of a high-level half-saint? In the distance, an expert revealed a look of disbelief as he looked at Hai Tian, who had attacked in a frenzy. Although those who had participated in the ancestral dragon godland were the top geniuses of the dragon clan, the demon clan, and the human clan, there were very few who could cultivate to a high-level half-saint before the age of 3,000. Hai Tian was already considered one of the strongest experts in the ancestral dragon godland. Now that the strongest expert had already made a move before the opening of the ancestral dragon godland, everyone was paying close attention. Hai Tian was one of the strongest experts now. It was not that easy to see him make a move. If they didn't see clearly and analyze Hai Tian's strength, the next time they saw Hai Tian make a move, it might be in the ancestral dragon godland to deal with them. However, the people of the true dragon sacred domain are really bold. They actually dared to attack a genius like Hai Tian. Hai Tian is an expert, so what if he bullies a few weaklings? The true dragon sacred domain really doesn't know what's good for them. A genius from the dragon clan said coldly. Although the dragon clan hadn't fought with each other, this was the ancestral dragon godland. They were all competitors. If they could make sarcastic remarks, they would naturally do their best. Monster? At this moment, Huang Kiki's face turned gloomy. The surrounding air pressure seemed to have dropped. Huang Kiki's bloodline had awakened early. Since she was young, she was different from ordinary people. What angered her the most was the word monster. How dare you call Kiki a monster? Die. In the next moment, Huang Kiki roared, and the power of her bloodline erupted. The terrifying true Yuan that belonged to the great desolation divine hound surged out. Together with her terrifying physical strength, she charged toward Hai Tian. Her speed had reached the extreme. So fast, Qi Ingtian, Jin Zhan, and the other dragons' faces changed slightly. They couldn't see Huang Qi's figure at this moment. How dare you charge toward the vast ocean wave seal of my dragon clan? You're courting death. Hai Tian smiled disdainfully. His dragon power surged as he attacked with all his strength. The seal that seemed to carry the power of a huge wave burst out. Boom! A terrifying sound rang out. The vast ocean wave seal didn't hold back and bombarded Huang Qi's body. T. Qi Ingtian's face changed drastically. No matter what, Huang Qi was only a mid-level half-saint. She would definitely be at a disadvantage against a high-level half-saint like Hai Tian. However, Huang Qi's face didn't change. A layer of grayish-white light suddenly appeared on Huang Qi's body. The light fluctuated and shook off the attack of the vast ocean wave seal. At this moment, Huang Qi's speed exploded with all her strength. She arrived in front of Hai Tian. What? Hai Tian's face changed drastically. She actually broke through his vast ocean wave seal. Just as he was about to gather his dragon power to counterattack, Huang Qi shouted, "How dare you call Kiki a monster? I'll beat you to death." The terrifying power of the great desolation divine hound's bloodline surged out. One punch. It was like a heavenly dog devouring the moon. Chapter 12:56. A punch was thrown. A resplendent blue light instantly erupted. In just a few breaths, a terrifying and irresistible force ruthlessly struck Hai Tian's body. A fist that was several times bigger than a sandbag landed on Hai Tian's abdomen. Hai Tian's back instantly bent, and his entire body shot backwards at a frightening speed that even the naked eye couldn't follow. It was as if his bones had been broken by the punch. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his aura weakened. Seeing this, the countless people who were waiting for Hai Tian to kill the people from the true dragon sacred world were all stunned. What was going on? That monstrous girl looked like a mid-level half-saint. At most, she was at the peak of the mid-level half-saint. Hai Tian, on the other hand, was a genuine high-level half-saint. With the power of a high-level half-saint, it was easy for him to deal with a mid-level half-saint. In the end, Hai Tian's vast ocean wave seal was blocked by Huang Qi with a strange technique. As for the terrifying moon-shattering fist, it had directly shattered Hai Tian's defense and sent him flying. What kind of terrifying power is that? Everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. They turned their heads away, afraid that the terrifying monster Huang Qi would target them. At this moment, someone's body shook, and a look of disbelief appeared on his face. Could it be the demon dog, Huang Qi of the Great Wilderness bloodline? Hearing this, everyone's expression changed. The Great Wilderness bloodline? The Great Wilderness bloodline had been passed down since ancient times, and it was extremely powerful. Similarly, it was one of the more powerful branches of the demon race. However, the Great Wilderness bloodline had always been mysterious and solitary. Therefore, no one would categorize the Great Wilderness bloodline as part of the demon race. However, there were two spots for the Great Wilderness bloodline in the ancestral dragon godland. It seemed like the demon dog Huang Qi was one of them. I didn't expect the Great Wilderness bloodline to send out the demon dog. Since the demon dog is here, the guy watching at the side must be the Great Wilderness divine dog, Huang Qi. Some experts looked to Huang Qi, who had a bitter smile on his face. Of the two siblings, the older Huang Qi was already considered an overlord amongst countless body cultivators. As for Huang Qi, although she was younger, due to the fact that her desolate bloodline had awakened earlier, her combat strength was also terrifying. The Desolation bloodline had sent out these two geniuses. Even some of the stronger monster race and human race forces were slightly shocked. Great desolate bloodline? At this moment, a white-haired, white-clothed youth with an ice-cold temperament turned his head indifferently and looked at Huang Qi and Huang CK, who were making a big fuss after being blasted into the sky. A ray of light flashed in his icy blue eyes. Looks like this trip to the ancestral dragon god land won't be too boring. Just as the white-haired youth was about to leave, his gaze shifted. However, he noticed the inconspicuous Tianyang beside Huang CK. In his emotionless eyes, there was a sudden surge of emotions. Tianyang, he really came. Following this, the white-haired young man took a step forward without hesitation and vanished into thin air. Now is not the time for Jiang Shuling to clash with Tianyang. It's a pity that Ling Yuhan didn't come. Otherwise, Tianyang would definitely be defeated by the power of the snow goddess. A cold glint flashed in Jiang Shuling's eyes. Damn it! Damn it! At this moment, Hai Tian, who had been hit by the collapsing moon punch, suddenly roared and jumped up from the ground. After all, he was a high-level half-saint. How could he be so easily defeated by a mid-level half-saint like Huang Qi? Desolate bloodline demonic dog, Huang Qi? So that's how it is. That strange grayish-white light from before must be the power of the desolate bloodline. Hai Tian's eyes revealed a trace of malevolence as he stared at Huang Qi. I knew it. How could a mid-level half-saint defeat Hai Tian of the Azure Sea Dragon race? The power of the desolate bloodline can only be used once. Then, let me see how strong a demonic dog without the power of the bloodline is. Hai Tian laughed maniacally. Let's see if you have the qualifications to stand up for the trash of the true dragon sacred domain. At this moment, Huang CK's expression suddenly changed and became extremely serious. The bloodline power of the desolate bloodline required a period of time before it could be used a second time. Now that Huang Qi's bloodline power had been used, it could only be used by Huang CK. However, the Azure Sea Dragon race was one of the top races in the Xintian Great World after all. Hai Tian, who had walked out of the Azure Sea Dragon race, was not so easy to stop. If you want to fight, at this moment, Huang CK stood up and looked at Hai Tian, who was gradually approaching him with a determined expression. Then let me do it. A mid-level half-saint at the peak? Do you people of the desolate bloodline like to court death so much? At this moment, Hai Tian glanced at Huang CK with a cold expression. Although Huang CK was older than Huang Qi, the degree of awakening of the desolate bloodline was not as high as Huang Qi's. Recently, he had received the bloodline inheritance and reached the peak of the mid-level half-saint. In terms of battle strength, he was not much stronger than Huang Qi. However, Huang CK still stood up for Huang Qi. Qi Yingtian and Jin Zhan would definitely not be able to stop Hai Tian. As for Tianyang, as a human, although he did not know why he could not sense his aura at all, he should not be that strong. Now, only he and Hai Tian had the power to fight. At this moment, Qi Yingtian and the others looked at Tianyang for help. Tianyang looked indifferent as he looked at Hai Tian, whose expression was gradually becoming more and more ferocious, and yawned. To be honest, such an opponent did not arouse his interest in fighting. However, among those present, he was probably the only one who could casually defeat Hai Tian. After all, it was a matter of a single thought. Hai Tian, come back. Just as Tianyang was about to attack, a cold and dignified voice suddenly rang out. Hai Tian was startled when he heard this, and so were Huang CK and the others. Who could call out to Hai Tian, a high-level half-saint who was already enraged? However, Hai Tian, whose expression was gradually becoming more and more distorted, was stunned when he heard this. His footsteps also came to a halt. Give me another chance to attack. Hai Tian gritted his teeth and roared angrily. However, the voice was still emotionless and cold. Come back. Hearing this, Hai Tian's face immediately revealed an extremely dissatisfied expression as he coldly glanced at Huang CK. Consider yourself lucky. However, when you reach the ancestral land of the dragon gods, you'd better pray that you won't encounter the sea dragon tribe. In the next moment, Hai Tian turned around and flew toward the Sea Dragon tribe's encampment. Seeing this, the Sea Dragon tribe and the two Desolation Divine Hound were all stunned. Tianyang had no choice but to withdraw the power of his primordial spirit that he had just activated. How annoying, Tianyang muttered to himself. Huang CK also withdrew his aura slowly, but his expression was grave. There's actually someone in the Sea Dragon tribe who can command Hai Tian, a high-level half-saint? Chapter 12:57. How powerful is the Azure Sea Dragon tribe? Huang CK said with an ugly expression. If a high-level half-saint like Hai Tian was the Azure Sea Dragon tribe's strongest force, they could accept it. However, the fact was that even someone like Hai Tian had to listen to someone else's orders. After being ordered around, he had to suppress his anger, even if he was angry. How powerful was that person to be able to command a high-level half-saint genius? Could it be a peak half-saint? At this moment, Lan Ji spoke. His voice was clearly trembling. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed. A peak half-saint who could appear here was obviously a different concept from the peak half-saints of ordinary forces. To be able to appear here, he must have cultivated for less than 3,000 years to become a peak half-saint under the age of 3,000. With such talent, even if it was a saint, it would be hard for them to not be moved. Generally, such a person's combat strength would be far beyond their current level. In other words, Qi Yingtian and the others could fight against ordinary peak half-saints, but they definitely couldn't defeat a genius peak half-saint. If the strongest person of the Azure Sea Dragon tribe was a peak half-saint, in that case, they could only retreat. Of course, this was what Lan Ji and Huang Yan thought. Qi Yingtian and Jin Zhan already knew what Tianyang had done in the Snow Sky Fox tribe. They didn't feel much unease. So what if there was a peak half-saint? They had a soul origin divine lord here. But who is the human race this time? Tianyang didn't care much and continued speaking. Huang CK and the others had obviously come earlier than them, so they naturally knew more. Only a few human forces sent people here. Among them, 5 are from the Northern Wilderness Desert, 1 is from the Central Divine Prefecture, and 2 are from the Eastern Divine Prefecture. The Northern Wilderness and the Great Desert only have 1 spot, and all of them are high-level half-saints. However, in the ancestral land of the Dragon God, all non-dragons will have their cultivation suppressed. Only those with powerful bloodlines can avoid it. Therefore, these human high-level half-saints are just SOSO in the ancestral land of the Dragon God. Huang CK said with a smile. Tianyang nodded slightly. The ancestral land of Divine Dragon was the birthplace of the Dragon tribe in the Xintian macro world. It contained numerous treasures of the Dragon tribe. Obviously, these treasures were left for their descendants. They didn't belong to the Dragon clan, but they still wanted to take a share of the loot. They had to bear the price. As for the Eastern Sky Divine Prefecture, it's like they're just guests. They only sent a mid-level half-saint, so there's no need to worry. Huang CK smiled, but a moment later, Huang CK's expression changed when he mentioned the Central Plains. However, the Divine Central Continent needs to be careful. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Wasn't there only one force from the Divine Central Continent? Why was it that when he mentioned the Great Desert of the Northern Wilderness and the Eastern Sky Divine Land, he didn't seem to care, but when he mentioned the Divine Land of Central Earth, he became so serious. Only one force from the Central Divine Prefecture came, but that force has 2 spots. Both of them are peak half-saints. Hearing this, Huang Yun, Jin Zhan, and Huang Keek's expressions changed drastically. Even Qi Yingtian and Jin Zhan's expressions changed. This time, just the Sea Dragon tribe alone could completely suppress them. There was actually a force stronger than the Sea Dragon tribe. Moreover, it was a true peak half-saint below the age of 3,000. This force is the strongest family in the Central Divine Prefecture, the Xianyuan family. Huang CK said solemnly. Hearing this, Qi Yingtian and the others' expressions changed completely. The Xianyuan family. These 4 words weighed heavily on the hearts of every cultivator in the Xintian macro world. It was even more so for the cultivators near the Central Divine Prefecture. The Xinyuan family was not only the #1 family in the Central Divine Prefecture, but also the #1 family in the world. The surname Xinyuan was enough to reign supreme in the world. Just now, a member of the Xinyuan family had died in the True Dragon's sacred world. I didn't expect that the Xinyuan family would also interfere this time, Tianyang said with a chuckle. He didn't care about other cultivators at all, not even the Sea Dragon tribe. But the Xinyuan family? Tianyang had originally planned to step into the Saint Realm after entering the ancestral Dragon Godland and kill the Xinyuan family. Now that the Xinyuan family had come, he didn't mind collecting a debt from the Xinyuan family in advance. It's only a dozen days until the ancestral Dragon Godland opens. Why don't the desolate bloodline form an alliance with the true dragon sacred world? A force with several middle-level half-saints is a top force in the ancestral land of the dragon god. As long as they don't encounter the Xinyuan family and the dragon tribe of the Azure Sea, they can freely collect resources, Huang Ck said at this moment. Hearing this, Jin Zhan was stunned, then nodded. All right. In fact, even if they encountered the Sea Dragon tribe and the Xinyuan family, they wouldn't be afraid. With Tianyang around, they could kill anyone who stood in their way. However, since Huang Ck and Tianyang were old friends, they had to form an alliance. Seeing this, Tianyang could only smile bitterly. He had thought that even if the true dragon's sacred world wasn't the strongest force in the ancestral dragon godland, they could do whatever they wanted. In the end, they had offended so many forces before the ancestral dragon godland opened. Now, it was impossible for him to act alone. The true dragon's sacred world has sent people to. In the depths of the ancestral dragon ruins, the Xinyuan family had already occupied the ruins palace. In the shadows, a man chuckled. In front of him, a woman nodded with a trace of cold arrogance on her face. Moreover, Tianyang, who killed Xinyuan Kong, is also here. So he's here too. The man nodded and stood up. His face was full of arrogance. Tianyang's movements are getting bigger and bigger. He even asked the Red Dragon Sage to help him snatch a marriage from the Snow Sky Fox clan. He's a little like his useless father. But now, he can only die in the hands of the Xinyuan family. Since Xinyuan Kong couldn't kill that bastard, let's kill him together. The bloodline of the Heavenly Lady cannot be tarnished. The man said indifferently. There wasn't much killing intent in his eyes. This was because he had already regarded Tianyang as an ant. There was no need to kill an ant. Of course, the woman nodded. But we can't let go of that thing in the ancestral dragon godland. I know what I'm doing. I don't need you to remind me. The man said indifferently. Then he looked up at the sky, which had changed color slightly. I'm really looking forward to the ancestral dragon godland. 13 days later, cultivators from all over the Xintian Great World stepped out of their encampments and looked up at the sky. Endless dragon chi spread out at this moment, as if it had turned the surroundings into a dragon world. A huge dragon mark shone in the sky. Then, a huge dragon-eye gate appeared. Chapter 1258. A golden spatial gate appeared in the sky like the eye of the Dragon King. It happened to be where the eye of the dragon tattoo was located. The way to open the ancestral dragon god's land is quite unique. Tianyang chuckled. Everyone's expression did not change when they heard this. Someone on the other side could not wait any longer and rushed forward. This guy's a little stupid. Chi Ingtian laughed when he saw this. Even in the true dragon sacred domain, the Crimson Dragon Sage had already explained this to them. This was the situation when the ancestral dragon god's land was opened. For example, when the dragon chi exploded, one must not rush into the spatial gate immediately. Otherwise, boom, that person spat out a mouthful of blood as he was sent flying by the dragon chi. Although he was not seriously injured, he was still slightly injured. Like that person, he would be injured by the dragon chi. All right, with that guy's help, we should be able to go straight in. However, the ancestral dragon god's land is vast and boundless. This spatial gate can teleport people randomly. Although we have tried our best to unify our auras, there is still a risk of being separated. If we are separated, then we have to be careful. The dangers in the ancestral dragon god's land are not limited to other people, Huang Sike said. As the heir of the great wilderness bloodline, he could read some of the ancient books in the great wilderness. Hearing this, everyone nodded and rushed toward the eye of the Dragon King at the same time. I've been injured. Don't think that you can enter unscathed. At this moment, the dragon that had been severely injured by the dragon, Qi, suddenly roared and charged toward Tianyang and the others. A terrifying dragon Qi pillar burst out from the dragon's hand and shot toward Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. He snorted coldly, and a terrifying sage stage sword principle power burst out. The terrifying light pillar that could easily kill Wu Zun at his peak was sliced into pieces by the sword Qi. So strong, that person's pupil shrank as he hurriedly dodged. However, how could the sword Qi formed by the sage stage sword principle power be so easily dealt with? In the blink of an eye, his arm was cut off by the terrifying sword Qi. Blood splattered, and the severed arm fell rapidly. The man screamed and hurriedly flew down to catch up with his severed arm. However, even if they managed to catch up, they wouldn't be able to connect in a short period of time. Even if they managed to connect, they wouldn't be able to unleash their full strength. They had just started, and they were already eliminated. The dragon roared angrily, but it was useless. And at this time, Tianyang's group also entered the eye of the Dragon King. I forgot to adjust my aura. Just as this thought flashed through Tianyang's mind, he was teleported away by the terrifying power of space, isolating him from the others. In an instant, he appeared somewhere in the ancestral land of the dragon gods. Barren mountains, barren lands, everything in the surroundings was extremely dry, giving off a dense fire-attributed dragon Qi. Tianyang could clearly feel that his cultivation was being suppressed by an invisible force. However, the immortal bloodline circulated slightly and directly shattered this force, returning his cultivation to its original state. Looking at the empty space around him, Tianyang couldn't help but smile bitterly. Sure enough, they were separated. Originally, their auras were the same, so it wasn't so safe. Now that they were separated, it was simply impossible to be teleported together with Qi, Yingtian, and the others. But if it's one person, then so be it. Qi Yingtian has so many mid-level half-saints. Other than opponents at the level of the Azure Sea Dragon tribe, there shouldn't be many bold enough to attack them. Tianyang muttered to himself. There were thousands of dragon demons in the ancestral land of the dragon gods, and not all of them could step into the half-saint realm. Although Lanji was at the bottom of the true dragon sacred domain, among the thousands of people, he could easily rank in the top 100. Most of them were at the peak of Wu Zun, and there were even Wu Zun at the 9th level. However, Wu Zun was at the 9th level. Even if he came to the ancestral land of the dragon gods, he would only be a bystander. But since I'm alone, it's a good opportunity to test the method of the sacred dragon sect. Tianyang smiled slightly. In the next moment, the embryonic form of the Dragon Emperor body erupted. The rolling aura of the Dragon Emperor bloomed at this moment, covering the surrounding 1,000 miles. The ancestral land of the dragon gods was a place of inheritance built for the dragon tribe. Therefore, it automatically sensed dragon Qi, especially powerful dragon Qi. As long as it was strong enough, the treasure would appear on its own, or there would be signs of it being born. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, Tianyang's primordial spirit sensed that 3 more dragon Qi soared into the sky. Tianyang's expression changed slightly. Aside from him, there were other dragons in the vicinity, and they all knew this method? Interesting. Tianyang smiled slightly. However, he did not show any sign of weakness and continued to unleash his power. Meanwhile, the 3 dragon Qi seemed to have sensed Tianyang's presence and rapidly grew stronger too. In the blink of an eye, 4 different dragon force presences exploded in the area of 1,000 miles. The ground under Tianyang's feet began to tremble. It actually works? Seeing this, Tianyang was startled. This mysterious method actually worked? Meanwhile, Tianyang sensed that the owners of the three-dragon Qi had moved too. Interesting. Tianyang smiled and raised his head. The top of the barren mountain behind him suddenly emitted an incomparably bright light. A terrifying flame burst into flames, burning half of the sky red. Meanwhile, Tianyang's primordial spirit had traveled thousands of miles in an instant and sensed the existence of the flame. It was a strangely shaped piece of metal. Its entire body was full of sharp edges, but it did not show any signs of weakness in the flame. And the flame was no ordinary flame. Tianyang sensed that even the true origin fire of Wu Zun at his peak was nothing more than this. TSK, the treasures of the ancestral land of the dragon god are really powerful. Even something like the heavenly red fire gold could appear so casually. Tianyang's lips curled. In an instant, he displayed the vast expanse 9 changes. His figure shot toward the barren mountain thousands of miles away. His speed broke the sound barrier in an instant, and it was still increasing rapidly. After entering the realm of divine artifacts, ordinary materials would not be of much use even if they were devoured by the great void sword embryo. As for useful materials, they were hard to find. Tianyang only knew a few of them. This heavenly red fire gold was the one that had the strongest effect on improving the great void sword embryo. In that case, the heavenly sun and the scarlet fire heavenly gold had to be obtained. At the same time, 3 streams of light shot toward him from different directions. Their goal was also the heavenly red fire gold. Chapter 1259. There's someone else? Unlike Tianyang, who had a powerful primordial spirit, the owners of the three-dragon Qi, sensed by Tianyang, might have sensed Tianyang's existence, but that was only because Tianyang's embryonic form of the Dragon Emperor's body might not be strong in terms of strength, but the level of absorbing thousands of dragons' power source and tempering his body with endless dragon blood was too terrifying. It directly focused the attention of everyone within 1,000 miles on Tianyang's dragon power pressure. Apart from that, these 3 dragons were completely unaware of the existence of the other 2. Seeing Tianyang and the other 2 dragons getting closer and closer, one of the dragons showed a hint of struggle. The next moment, it roared into the sky. The dragon bloodline surged wildly. In an instant, it transformed into a dragon. Its speed exploded again, and compared to before, it was a full level higher. It can still transform into its original form? At this moment, the other 2 dragons were also stunned. Without hesitation, they roared and transformed into their original forms like the first dragon. Their speed also began to skyrocket. After all, this was the ancestral dragon god's land. For someone like Tianyang, it was already good enough that he was not suppressed by the omnipresent dragon aura of the ancestral dragon god's land. It was simply impossible for him to be like these 3 dragons and receive the buffs of the ancestral dragon god's land. However, it was like a 3-year-old child with a broadsword could not beat an adult with a stick. Even with the buffs, in front of Tianyang, it was like a 3-year-old child. Slow. The corner of Tianyang's mouth curled up. The boundless Tao was activated, and his speed broke through the previous limit again. The distance of thousands of miles was covered in less than 2 breaths. The terrifying flames were still burning wildly. However, for Tianyang, as long as he reached it, there was no problem. The true flames of destruction burned all over Tianyang's body. This flame that even a half-sage existence would be wary of was just a little hot in front of Tianyang. Stop! At this moment, the 3 dragons arrived almost at the same time and saw what Tianyang was doing. Instantly, a dragon roared and slammed out with a dragon claw. The claw mark tore through the void and slashed towards Tianyang. The other 2 were the same. They instantly erupted with dragon race martial skills and charged towards Tianyang. Since they were competing for the same treasure, then whoever obtained it first would be dealt with first. This point was universal no matter which world it was. If Tianyang's strength was the same as that of the dragon race, then he might be the same as the genius who had snatched the spiritual destruction fire from the northern wilderness domain in the northern wilderness secret realm. Just as he was about to obtain the spirit annihilation flame, he was already reduced to dregs by countless attacks. However, Tianyang's strength was not the same as this group of dragons. Instead, it far surpassed them. Break! Tianyang chuckled and instantly released the terrifying power of the Saint Stage Sword Dao. The claw mark, the flame, and the dragon sword were instantly sliced into pieces by the terrifying sword chi. It was even weaker than tofu. Without the slightest resistance, it disappeared in an instant. Seeing this, the three dragons were in disbelief. This guy actually, so effortlessly, he had destroyed the attacks of the three of them? Sword Chi. It's the person who cut off Xiong Kong's left arm in an instant. At this moment, someone recognized Tianyang's identity and shouted loudly. Seeing this, the remaining two dragons' expressions changed. The group from the True Dragon Sacred Domain was the first to enter. Therefore, everyone had seen Tianyang's display of strength before entering the ancestral dragon godland and cutting off the left arm of one of the dragons who tried to sneak up on him. Now that they saw the exact same sword chi attack, they naturally recognized it immediately. Although these three dragons were not from the same dragon tribe as the one whose left arm was cut off by Tianyang's sword chi, they were all from the land dragon tribe and knew each other. Naturally, they knew of Xiong Kong's strength. Xiong Kong is just a half-saint sent by the Green Mountain Dragon tribe to see if he can take advantage of the chaos. What's so strange about cutting off his arms? At this moment, a dragon tribe member spoke with disdain. I am a mid-level half-saint. Me too. Of course, me too. 3 mid-level half-saints. Among the group from the True Dragon Sacred Domain, this was not a weak force. If it was not necessary, even the Azure Sea Dragon tribe would not casually provoke 3 mid-level half-saints. The three dragons seemed to have realized this as well. Their words were extremely ferocious. Now, hand over the heavenly red fire gold, and we can still give you a chance to compete fairly. However, if you are stubborn, then you have to consider whether your small body can withstand the attacks of 3 mid-level half-saints. One of the dragons sneered. In his eyes, 3 mid-level half-saints were enough to make anyone below a high-level half-saint bow down to them. Even those high-level half-saints weren't willing to offend 3 mid-level half-saints for a single treasure. Although this guy's cultivation could not be seen, he was definitely not strong. Facing the threat of the three of them, wouldn't he have to obediently surrender? 3 mid-level half-saints? Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. He did not expect his luck to be so good. The moment he entered, he met 3 of them who were ranked at least in the top 70. However, Tianyang did not care. You want to compete fairly? Tianyang seemed to have thought of something and smiled lightly. Hearing this, the 3 mid-level half-saints were stunned. Wasn't this guy, who was still in his human form, the one who wanted it? Why was it that they wanted it? However, since it was a fair competition, it did not matter who wanted it. This guy was probably bluffing because he was afraid. Of course. All right, I will give you a handicap. If you can defeat me, this heavenly red fire gold is yours. Tianyang smiled. There was no mockery, disdain, or contempt in his tone. It was just a faint smile. However, when these words entered the ears of the 3 dragons, they immediately took on a different tone. Arrogant. One of the dragons was instantly enraged. A guy who can't even change his dragon form dares to be so arrogant in front of us. Hands and feet, I can kill you with 1 claw. In the next moment, one of the dragons roared and waved his dragon claws, charging toward Tianyang. On both sides, the 2 dragons were completely enraged by this sentence. Hands and feet. Didn't that mean that Tianyang would stand there and let them hit him? This was simply the greatest humiliation to the Dragon Clan's geniuses. Die. Wind breaking claw. Dawn roar. Dragon subduing sword. Dragon power surged wildly. 3 terrifying attacks were formed in an instant and blasted toward Tianyang at the same time. Tianyang smiled faintly and stood still on the spot. However, the power of the Sage Realm Sword Principle instantly triggered thousands of sword auras, forming a terrifying sword storm around Tianyang. Boom! With a terrifying loud sound, the claw, flames, and swords exploded instantly. Chapter 1260. Puff, puff, puff. 3 consecutive sounds of spitting blood came from the mouths of the 3 dragons. Streaks of red fell from the sky. As for the 3 dragons, their faces were filled with terror at this moment. How could he be so strong? It was just one move, a move that didn't even use a holy weapon, but it destroyed their best attack. Even the rest of them were injured. Most importantly, Tianyang was fighting 1 against 3. This horrifying strength instantly shocked all the dragons. Tianyang smiled faintly and said, "Don't worry. Now, do you still want it?" Tianyang had planned to take the scarlet fire heavenly gold and run away, leaving the 3 dragons to eat his dust. However, he didn't know how big the ancestral land of the dragon god was. If he didn't make a scene, he might not be able to let others know. He might as well kill them one by one and let the news spread. Hearing this, the 3 dragons shook their heads desperately. What a joke. Tianyang could break their strongest attack and injure them when he didn't use his hands and feet. What if he took out his weapon and used his holy path? Could they survive? Although the scarlet fire heavenly gold was precious, it wasn't as precious as their lives. Then get lost. Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, the 3 dragons immediately nodded frantically like chickens pecking at rice. Then, they used a turning technique and instantly disappeared from Tianyang's sight. He didn't expect there to be such a monster in the Jinlong's sacred domain other than the few mid-level half-saints. This news had to be spread out. Otherwise, if the people on his side were to encounter them, they would die without a place to seek justice. Tianyang smiled and put the scarlet fire heavenly gold into his space bag. He wasn't in a hurry to let the great void sword embryo devour the scarlet fire heavenly gold. Where the scarlet fire heavenly gold exists, there must be a strong fire element. However, it might not be able to condense flames. Previously, there were not only flames, but its power was also terrifying. That means, under the barren mountain, there must be a fire element treasure more powerful than the scarlet fire heavenly gold. There must be spiritual fire. Tianyang licked his lips and revealed a look of interest. No matter which one it was still very valuable to him. The true flames of destruction had not devoured spiritual fire for a long time. Without sufficient spiritual fire as nourishment, no matter how powerful the 10,000 elephant divine flame was, it would not be able to strengthen the true flames of destruction. Right now, Tianyang's cultivation was only at the peak. Wuzun might be enough. However, when Tianyang cultivated to the saint realm, the true flames of destruction of the 7th level spiritual fire were a little difficult to deal with. It's best if it's a spiritual fire. Tianyang smiled. The next moment, his figure flashed, and the true flames of destruction burned around him, completely enveloping Tianyang. In the next moment, he rushed into the barren mountain. This barren mountain is actually a volcano. Tianyang raised his eyebrows, revealing a trace of surprise, and then felt relieved. It was normal for a volcano to be able to nurture a treasure like the scarlet fire sky gold. However, there's something in the magma. Tianyang's speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he plunged into the magma. The magma in the volcano was not what ordinary people imagined. It was only a huge magma pool. In addition to the huge magma pool, there were countless fire veins that ran through the magma pools, connecting them to each other. If it was deeper and connected to the depths of the earth, it would even be connected to the magma flow underground. If that was the case, Tianyang would have a headache. After all, no matter how strong his primordial spirit was, he could only use less than 1/5 of it underground. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to find a fire-based treasure in the endless magma flow. Fortunately, this barren mountain was not that abnormal. After a while, Tianyang sensed an unusual movement of magma. Tianyang immediately used the Heaven's Expanse 9 changes, and his figure directly arrived at the bottom of the volcano. His inextinguishable eyes burned slowly. The countless magma barriers disappeared in an instant. Tianyang's gaze saw through the layers of barriers and saw a burning flame in the depths of the magma. There's indeed a spiritual fire. Tianyang was delighted. The spiritual fire was not something that was easy to find. Unless he went to an alchemy faction to rob them, there were very few martial factions that could possess a spiritual fire. Now, the spiritual fire that could nurture the scarlet fire heavenly gold, which could be used to refine rank 7 treasures, was at least rank 7. If it's rank 8, I'm 80% sure that I can't beat it. Rank 7 is just right. Tianyang smiled slightly. In the next moment, he used the 9 steps of death. Endless death chi wrapped around Tianyang's body. With each step he took, the death chi wrapped around Tianyang's body became stronger and stronger. At this moment, the spiritual fire that seemed to be in a deep sleep suddenly erupted. Roar! A dragon-like roar rang in Tianyang's ears. In the next moment, the spiritual fire turned into a fire dragon and charged toward Tianyang. Tianyang immediately drew his sword. Boundless death chi began to gather. Tao of life and death, instant brilliance. In an instant, it was as if endless death had descended. The fire dragon was also slashed by Tianyang's sword. Roar! The fire dragon's head was chopped off in an instant. However, to a spiritual fire, the head was useless. In just an instant, the spiritual fire condensed into a dragon head again. At this moment, Tianyang suddenly realized that the surrounding magma seemed to be controlled by the fire dragon. It was pressing toward him. It's a little intelligent. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled slightly. There are not many spiritual fires that could use their own abilities. Generally, this kind of spiritual fire would definitely not be weak. Looks like it's an advanced rank 7 spiritual fire. Tianyang smiled slightly. In a flash, he appeared behind the fire dragon. He slashed down with his sword. Although the spiritual fire did not have any obvious flaws, it had a weakness that would exist as long as it existed in the world. Energy depletion. Boom. The fire dragon's body was once again slashed by Tianyang. Although it condensed back in the next moment, its aura was slightly weaker. However, this fire dragon seemed to have been completely enraged by Tianyang. Roar! A deafening dragon roar was heard, and the surrounding magma instantly surged. They transformed into countless ferocious attacks that shot towards Heavenly Sun. There were swords, sabers, spears, and even countless seals. Although there was no power of the seals themselves, Tianyang was pleasantly surprised. The spiritual fire's intelligence had far exceeded his expectations. Could it be that this is not an ordinary spiritual fire? Tianyang stood in the void and slashed a few times with the great void sword embryo in his hand. The countless attacks instantly exploded. The true flames of destruction burned fiercely, isolating the surrounding magma from the outside. Roar! At this moment, the fire dragon roared again, and its figure suddenly disappeared. In the next moment, everything around seemed to have changed. This is a territory. Heavenly Sun was stunned for a moment before he reacted. It seems that this is indeed. Chapter 1261. Fire Spirit. It was different from ordinary spiritual fires. Fire spirits might not be stronger than spiritual fires, but they were rarer than spiritual fires. Spiritual fires were born from heaven and earth and had existed since ancient times. As long as one was lucky enough, one would encounter them. Fire spirits were formed from a union of countless fire attribute objects. They might or might not have existed since ancient times. The fire dragon in front of Tianyang was a fire spirit formed from the enormous fire attribute magma in this barren mountain. I didn't expect that I would really meet a fire spirit. Tianyang clicked his tongue in admiration. He thought that he was lucky enough to encounter a spiritual fire, but he did not expect to encounter a fire spirit. Fire spirits might not be stronger than spiritual fires, but one thing was certain. The growth potential of fire spirits was countless times stronger than spiritual fires. Tianyang's 10,000 divine flames was a growth method for spiritual fires. If Tianyang could devour a fire spirit, then the growth potential of the true destruction flames would be greatly enhanced. Most importantly, it was difficult for ordinary spiritual fires to reach level 7. The chances of a fire spirit reaching level 7 were even slimmer. The one in front of him had not only reached level 7, but he was also one of the best among level 7. Looks like the founder of the ancestral dragon god did a lot for the descendants of the dragon race. Could a land of inheritance of the dragon race give birth to a fire spirit that only appeared once in a blue moon? Maybe, but there was a 90% chance that this fire spirit was put in by the dragon race's ancestors. But now, Tianyang, this fake dragon, had benefited. Since you're my hands, then don't run. Tianyang smiled slightly. His figure flashed, and he charged toward the fire spirit. However, although he knew how powerful the fire spirit was, Tianyang did not relax the sword in his hand. It was because it was powerful that he had to beat it half to death to absorb it. Roar! 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 This fire spirit was clearly not some naive fire spirit. When it saw Tianyang charging over, it immediately roared and used the power of the fire spirit to control the surrounding magma to attack Tianyang. This was the source of the ability that was similar to a domain. This fire spirit was born from magma, so it could naturally control magma. However, Tianyang's expression did not change as he snorted coldly. The embryonic form of the Dragon Emperor erupted. In an instant, the countless streams of lava that were charging towards him were suppressed by the Dragon Emperor's aura, and the fire spirit seemed to be stunned as well. For a moment, it didn't move at all. How could Tianyang let go of this opportunity? His figure flashed, and he directly grabbed the stunned Hualing. Roar, roar, roar. After being restrained by Tianyang, the fire spirit roared angrily and wanted to break free. However, how could Tianyang give the fire spirit any chance? Little guy, just obey me. Tianyang chuckled and was about to activate the 10,000 elephant god flame. And at this time, a terrifying spear light suddenly pierced through the barren mountain, ruthlessly rushing towards Tianyang. Tianyang's expression changed slightly, and he snorted coldly. The true flames of destruction instantly condensed into a huge divine shield, blocking it. However, the fire spirit seized this opportunity and leaped out. It actually abandoned its home ground, the underground magma, and rushed towards the outside world. In just an instant, the barren mountain was shattered by the fire spirit, and the fire spirit also rushed towards the sky crazily. The fire spirit had its own spiritual intelligence, and it instinctively didn't want to be controlled by anyone. Now that it had a chance, it would naturally escape. Where did this retard come from? Tianyang's expression instantly turned ugly. He was about to get it, but in the end, a spear came out of nowhere and ruined everything. Tianyang's mood also became extremely bad at this moment. He used the Boundless 9 changes and rushed out instantly. At this time, Tianyang also realized that the fire spirit, who rushed out, didn't succeed in escaping. Instead, it was imprisoned by a figure holding a spear, unable to move. I didn't expect that there would be a fire spirit under this small, broken mountain. A slightly familiar, arrogant voice sounded. Then, that person didn't even look at Tianyang. Kid, I'll give you a chance. Now scram. Give this fire spirit to me. Otherwise, the anger of a high-level half-saint from the Sea Dragon tribe won't be so easy to bear. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed. No wonder this voice sounded a little familiar. Wasn't it Hai Tian, who wanted to bully the people of the true dragon's sacred domain more than 10 days ago, but was directly beaten back by Huang Kiki? What? Still not scramming? Sensing that Tianyang was standing there motionlessly, Hai Tian's expression also became gloomy. The last time he attacked the true dragon's sacred domain, he was ordered by his boss not to do anything for more than 10 days. Hai Tian was already extremely depressed. Now, in the ancestral dragon godland, there was someone who dared to go against him. So it's that human trash who mingled with the true dragon sacred domain. Hai Tian glanced at Tianyang and instantly recognized him. His expression also became extremely ferocious. Streaks of killing intent bloomed from Hai Tian's body. There's a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. There's no door to hell, but you barged in. You didn't when I asked you to scram. Now, you can't scram even if you want to. Hai Tian laughed wildly. Although you only mingled with the people of the true dragon's sacred domain, since you're related to that bunch of trash, then I'll sentence you to death. In the next moment, the long spear in his hand seemed to be coiled around by a huge dragon as it charged towards Tianyang. Killing intent burst out from his blue vertical pupils. Go to hell. Sky Sea Line. Hai Tian roared angrily. His figure instantly disappeared, and a line instantly split the sky. An extremely terrifying spear also charged towards Tianyang. Oh! At this moment, Tianyang spoke coldly as he looked indifferently at the incoming spear. The speed was extremely fast, but in Tianyang's eyes, it was nothing. He was nothing. Originally, Tianyang was in an extremely bad mood because the fire spirit that he had painstakingly obtained had run away. Looking at it now, it was an old enemy who was looking for him and whispering in his ear. Tianyang's mood was naturally extremely bad. I didn't teach you a lesson last time. Now, get up here and accept your death. Then I won't hold back. In an instant, the power of the sage state primordial spirit erupted. The pressure from the entire soul sea instantly caused Hai Tian's pupils to contract. This, just as he was about to put away his spear and escape, the pressure of the primordial spirit, which was like a huge mountain, perfectly acted on Hai Tian's body. Hai Tian's pupils contracted, and he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire person was suppressed by this primordial spirit, and he directly lost the ability to move. Boom! Hai Tian rapidly fell and smashed into the ground, leaving a deep pit. Tianyang, on the other hand, was expressionless as he reached out and grabbed. Hai Tian was like a marionette as he was grabbed up again. Damn it! Let me go! Otherwise, I'll destroy all the forces behind you. Hai Tian roared crazily. Don't think that I'm the strongest in the Sea Dragon clan. If the boss makes a move, all of you will die. Lowly human ant, let me go. Otherwise, your wife, friends, family, all of them will die. Oh. Tianyang spoke slowly, looking indifferently at Hai Tian. Then, how do you want to die? Chapter 1262. How do you want to die? Tianyang asked indifferently. The great void, sword embryo in his hand, was surrounded by thunder and lightning. The slaughter territory was quietly released. The surroundings seemed to be covered in blood, and Hai Tian was completely stunned. Territory. A territory was still an extremely rare existence in the Xintian Great World. Tianyang's aura was also exposed during the battle. Wu Zun at his peak. However, the combat strength of Wu Zun at his peak was far beyond Hai Tian's imagination. And this Wu Zun at his peak actually had a territory. His combat strength was so strong, and he had a territory. With such talent, if he entered the Saint Realm, he might be much stronger than some of the veteran saints of the Sea Dragon tribe. Then, I can't let him enter the Saint Realm. Hai Tian's face suddenly became ferocious. With a roar, the vital essence of a high-level half-saint erupted. In an instant, he broke free from Tianyang's restraint and activated his Saint Realm cultivation technique. Mysterious dragon patterns appeared on the long spear in his hand. In the next moment, an extremely terrifying spear shot out. It seemed to carry the power of heaven and earth. The sea turned to dust, the thunder and lightning dried up. Everywhere the spear passed, the space was torn apart. It was as ferocious as a primordial beast, making one's heart tremble. Go to hell! Hai Tian roared ferociously. At this moment, Tianyang's emotionless eyes turned to the long spear that was flying toward him. It seems like you've chosen to court death. In the next moment, Tianyang aimed at the long spear and slowly clenched his fists. The terrifying primordial spirit power surged out like a tsunami. Hai Tian's expression changed instantly. Just as he was about to speak, a terrifying oppressive force acted on him. The speed of the spear also slowed down in an instant before he could even feel it. Then, it fell without any power to speak of. How is this possible? Hai Tian was dumbfounded. That was a holy martial artist, a peak existence among the holy martial artists. Even if they couldn't kill Tianyang, They should have at least seriously injured Tianyang. Why couldn't they even injure Tianyang? However, this roar of disbelief was only a roar from the bottom of his heart. His entire body was suppressed by the terrifying pressure of the primordial spirit. Under this pressure, even Hai Tian's resilient spirit Ci began to tremble. It was as if a huge millstone was crushing Hai Tian's soul Ci bit by bit. No! Hai Tian used all his strength to control his physical body and let out a raving roar. The strongest of the Azure Sea Dragon clan is a peak half-saint. If you kill me, don't kill me. I can give you everything. Whatever you want. Hai Tian, can give you with my status in the Dragon Clan of the Azure Sea. No need. Tianyang said faintly. At this moment, the power of the sage primordial spirit continued to press down slowly. It was neither too fast nor too slow, maintaining a constant speed. It didn't matter if Hai Tian resisted with all his strength at the beginning or if he had no strength left. Only now did Hai Tian realize that Tianyang had the strength to kill him from the beginning. However, the arrogance of the Azure Sea Dragon clan and Tianyang's silent attitude had blinded him. 3 minutes later, Hai Tian used all his strength to detonate his primordial spirit. Only then did he avoid the terrible pain of being crushed by Tianyang's millstone for 3 hours. Tianyang's expression didn't change. If Hai Tian only wanted to kill him, he might not have done anything. There were too many people who wanted to kill him. It didn't matter if there was more or less Hai Tian. However, Hai Tian was a threat to Ling Yuhan. Tianyang naturally couldn't continue being polite. With the power of the Azure Sea Dragon clan, it was possible that they could threaten the true dragon sacred world. There's no lack of retards in this world. Seeing that Hai Tian's primordial spirit only turned the surrounding 3 inches into dust, Tianyang shook his head. It's not wise to be angry at a retard. Now, I have to refine the fire spirit of the Dragon Clan that was born in the magma. Tianyang smiled and took a step forward. Due to Hai Tian's death, the fire spirit that was imprisoned in the Azure Sea Dragon Force Cage was also freed in an instant. However, just as it was about to rush out, Tianyang reached out and grabbed it easily. This fire spirit had also developed some spiritual intelligence. If one had to describe it, it could be said that it was a living creature. However, Tianyang wasn't saint. So what if it was a living creature? If he wanted to be strong, he had to refine the fire spirit. Roar! 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 Although it was restrained by Tianyang's hand, the fire spirit was still unwilling to be outdone. It roared crazily, trying to make Tianyang let go. Powerful flames also overflowed from the fire spirit's body. However, it was useless. The true flames of destruction burned lightly and easily suppressed the fire spirit that was rapidly weakening after leaving its birthplace. The fire spirit was like an unformed spiritual fire. Once it left its birthplace, it would lose its source of power and naturally weaken rapidly. Therefore, it would be much easier for Tianyang to devour it. In an instant, Tianyang formed a seal with both hands and activated the 10,000 Divine Flames technique. Roar! 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 The fire spirit seemed to feel threatened and began to roar crazily. However, it couldn't escape from Tianyang's palm at all. You won't be weak if you follow me. Tianyang smiled slightly. The 10,000 Divine Flames technique was completely unleashed. The fire spirit's origin was also absorbed into Tianyang's body. The true flames of destruction burned fiercely and continuously refined the fire spirit's origin. The original true flames of destruction was at the advanced 7th level, close to the peak quality. Now, as the fire spirit was refined, it became stronger and stronger. Roar! 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 However, even after being absorbed into Tianyang's dantian, the fire spirit continued to struggle and burn Tianyang's vital energy. Tianyang didn't care at all and allowed his vital energy to be burned into nothingness. The endless spirit sea was right there. I'll give you a day. If you can burn half of it, it'll be Tianyang's loss. Tianyang didn't stay idle either. He continuously activated the 10,000 Divine Flames technique and the Divine Wilderness Heaven Spirit Art. He released wave after wave of suppressive power to suppress the fire spirit. In the end, the fire spirit completely lost its ability to resist and was firmly suppressed in Tianyang's dantian. The true flames of destruction also entered and refined the fire spirit's origin. In an instant, a crimson dragon-shaped flame appeared in the pure, black, true flames of destruction. The 10,000 divine flames technique was activated, and the crimson dragon-shaped flame quickly merged into the true flames of destruction. Similarly, it became pure black. The grade of the true flames of destruction also soared rapidly at this moment. Advanced 7th level, peak 7th level, half-step 8th level. It soared 2 levels before stopping. Moreover, it wasn't far from a true 8th level sacred flame. Chapter 1263. A half-step to the 8th level sacred flame. Tianyang's lips curled into a smile as he felt the power of the true flames of destruction. A 7th level spiritual fire was already extremely rare, and an 8th level sacred flame was many times rarer than a 7th level spiritual fire. Most spiritual fires were already fixed at birth, and there were even fewer spiritual fires that were at the 8th level, which was comparable to the saint realm. Even if there were, most of them would form a force and would not be enslaved by others. Even some supreme saints would be considered good if they had a peak 7th level spiritual fire. An 8th level spiritual fire was something that not even a saint emperor might have. A half step to the 8th level existed between the two, but it was still extremely rare. At least, it was only in terms of spiritual fire. Tianyang felt that it should not be a problem to defeat 90% of the alchemists in the world. Since the spiritual fire has been devoured, now is the time to look for other treasures. Tianyang smiled and put away the evolved true flames of destruction. At the same time, he waved his hand, and Hai Tian's space bag fell into Tianyang's hand. Hai Tian probably did not expect that the explosion of his primordial spirit would be so weak. Under the pressure of Tianyang's Saint Realm primordial spirit, not even half of its power could be unleashed. He could not even destroy his own space bag. Hai Tian is indeed a member of the Sea Dragon tribe. TSK. He's so rich that he could defeat 10,000 of me. Tianyang casually took a look and was immediately shocked. Tianyang had plundered many saints' secret realms, relics, and even existences like the Great Lord of Heaven from the extraterritorial demon clan had dozens of saint martial arts. However, Hai Tian's space bag alone had close to 100 of them. Although they were all copies, it was equivalent to twice as many as Tianyang. As for the other saint weapons and saint objects, they still surpassed Tianyang. If the treasures that Hai Tian had in the Sea Dragon tribe were counted, it was unknown how many treasures Hai Tian had. The Dragon tribe of the Azure Sea is indeed worthy of being called the Sea King of the Black Sky Great World since ancient times. Their foundation is indeed extraordinary. Of course, Tianyang also knew that Hai Tian's talent was one of the factors, even though the Sea Dragon tribe had a strong foundation. However, no matter what, the many treasures that Hai Tian had exchanged for with his own talent had all fallen into Tianyang's hands. The only things that can be used now are probably some sea tri materials. TSK. This Hai Tian is not particular. He only brought a few things. Tianyang curled his lips and took out the materials from the Ocean Sky dimensional bag and his Scarlet Fire Sky Gold. The Great Void sword embryo in his hand started to shake slightly. In the next moment, Tianyang waved his hand casually, and the Great Void sword embryo streaked across these materials. These materials melted automatically, turning into countless energy essences that surged into the Great Void sword embryo. The grade of the Great Void sword embryo was also increasing rapidly. It was getting closer and closer to becoming a great sage weapon. Could this Great Void sword embryo really be a Saint Emperor weapon embryo refined by the 9-universe Saint Emperor? Tianyang muttered as he looked at the Great Void sword embryo that was still not satisfied even after swallowing several materials. From an ordinary spiritual weapon to a level where it was considered one of the best among saint weapons, it looked like it was going to improve again. Tianyang felt that this kind of growth was a little terrifying. It might be more than that. I still know the 9 universe, Saint Emperor's skill in refining weapons. At this moment, the little golden girl spoke. Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned. Then you mean? It's hard to say. Anyway, this great void sword embryo of yours might have a great origin. The little golden girl said, her tone full of uncertainty. Tianyang glanced at the great void sword embryo in his hand. Even an existence like the little golden girl was not sure. The origin of this great void sword embryo might be frightening. However, it's a little strange that there are other great void sword embryo fragments in the 9 universe sky ruins. Tianyang said casually. He rose into the air, chose a direction, and flew quickly. In the heavens expanse temple, the little golden girl's eyes narrowed slightly. Fragments. A few mid-level half-saints want to snatch something from the vast Sky Dragon tribe. In another corner of the divine dragon ancestral land, a high-level half-saint and 2 mid-level half-saints looked at Qi Yingtian and the others in front of them with a mocking expression. The true dragon sacred domain was not the only land force in the Xiantian Great World. The vast Sky Dragon tribe was a powerful dragon tribe native to the northern wilderness desert. There were also great saints among them. They might not be weaker than the red dragon saint. The true dragon sacred domain was the first to discover this drop of great saint blood essence of the dragon tribe. What does it have to do with the vast Sky Dragon tribe? Qi Yingtian roared angrily as he looked at the 3 from the vast Sky Dragon tribe who had suddenly attacked and almost snatched the great saint blood essence of the dragon tribe. It was not easy for them to find a last remaining drop of blood essence of the great saint of the dragon tribe in a dangerous ruin. Before they could put it into their space bags, the 3 from the vast Sky Dragon tribe had already charged out. Ridiculous. The high-rank half-saint immediately revealed a mocking smile when he heard this. This is the divine dragon ancestral land. It's a place where everyone fights to the death with their own abilities. What's the use of first come, first served? Moreover, do you really think you found this ruin? We were the first to come. We just let you check if it's dangerous first. The high-level half-saint sneered. Hearing that, Qi Yingtian's expression turned extremely ugly. Who would have thought that they would be used by the vast Sky Dragon tribe as weapons? Now, you have nothing to say, right? Then obediently hand over the great saint blood essence. We are not idiots like Hai Tian. If you insist on resisting, the 3 of us will attack together. You may be able to block a high-level half-saint, but can you block the remaining 2 mid-level half-saints? The high-level half-saint laughed loudly. Hearing that, everyone's expression turned extremely ugly. They had been able to defeat Hai Tian earlier because Hai Tian had underestimated his opponent, and Huang Keek's attack was extremely strange. When Hai Tian was about to attack, he was called back by the leader of the Azure Sea Dragon tribe. Strictly speaking, they had not been able to block any high-level half-saints. Now, the high-level half-saint from the vast Sky Dragon tribe seemed to be stronger than Hai Tian. If they attacked, although the true dragon sacred world and the great wilderness bloodline had joined forces, it was still unknown whether they could block the 3 of them. Tianyang? At this moment, Jin Zhan suddenly looked into the distance and exclaimed in shock. So he wasn't left far behind? Tianyang? Your reinforcements? Hearing that, the high-level half-saint from the vast Sky Dragon tribe revealed a look of disdain. Even if another mid-level half-saint comes. Wait a minute, Tianyang. The high-level half-saint from the vast Sky Dragon tribe's expression changed instantly as he looked at Jin Zhan in disbelief. You mean Tianyang, who wreaked havoc in the Snow Sky Fox tribe? The vast Sky Dragon tribe, as a dragon tribe from the mainland, was naturally more well-informed than the Azure Sea Dragon tribe who lived in the deep sea. When Jin Zhan spoke, the high-level half-saint from the vast Sky Dragon tribe instantly reacted. Big brother, that Tianyang seems to be from the true dragon's sacred world. At this moment, a mid-level half-saint ran to the high-level half-saint's side and whispered. Hearing that, the high-level half-saint's expression changed completely, and he followed Jin Zhan's gaze. It seemed like there was really a small black dot there. Count yourselves lucky this time. Let's go. The high-level half-saint glared fiercely at Qi Yingtian and the others. Then, He flicked his sleeves, snorted coldly, and left quickly. Chapter 1264. The three dragons of the Hautian dragon tribe immediately left. Even though the essence blood of a great saint of the dragon tribe was extremely precious, they still decisively gave up. Seeing this, Huang Ck and Huang Kiki, who did not know Tianyang's strength, were stunned. They hurriedly looked around, but there was no trace of Tianyang. Jin Zhan, is big brother Tianyang really here? Qi Tian also looked at Jin Zhan suspiciously. If Tianyang came, he would be the first to discover him. When did Jin Zhan's perception become so strong? Jin Zhan looked around and released the power of his primordial spirit. When there was no trace of the Hautian dragon tribe within a radius of a few hundred miles, he chuckled and shook his head. No, he's just a fox pretending to be a tiger. Hearing this, Lan Ji, Huang Yun, Huang Ck, and the others were stunned. A fox pretending to be a tiger? Just by mentioning Tianyang's name, the domineering three dragons of the Hautian dragon tribe retreated as if they had heard his name. How strong was Jin Zhan's heart? However, Qi Tian muttered, "How come I didn't notice that you're quite black-bellied? Well, if big brother Tianyang came, I would be the first to discover him." At this moment, Huang Ck could not help but speak. Tianyang, is he very strong? Previously, he could not see Tianyang's strength and thought that Tianyang was at most a mid-level half-saint. Now it seemed impossible. Even a peak half-saint might not be able to make the three dragons of the Hautian dragon tribe run away like mice that had seen a cat. Of course he's strong. My big brother Tianyang is unparalleled in the world. No one in the entire ancestral dragon godland can match him. Don't you know that you're big brother Tianyang's friend? I really don't know. Hearing this, Huang Ck could only smile bitterly. Previously, he had been receiving the bloodline inheritance in the tribe and knew nothing about the outside world. TSK, you really don't care about your friends. Hearing this, Qi Tian pursed his lips. You should have heard of the Snow Fox tribe, right? Of course. Although the Snow Sky Fox clan has been hiding from the world for a very long time, the powerful intelligence network of the Great Wilderness bloodline still knows about it. Huang Ck said. Then, his face gradually changed. Snow Sky Fox clan. Not long ago, something big happened. You mean? That's right. The one who messed up the Snow Sky Fox clan was my big brother, Tianyang. Qi Tian said proudly, as if he was the one who had caused havoc in the Snow Sky Fox clan. Hiss. This time, Huang Ck was really shocked. The Snow Sky Fox clan was a huge force. Back when he was only at the Wuzun realm and went out to train, his elders had warned him not to provoke them. Now, Tianyang, who was also in the realm of Wuzun, had actually made a mess of the Snow Sky Fox clan and was still alive and well. Incredible! Huang Ck sighed in admiration. Huang Kiki, who was beside him, also had a look of disbelief. In her impression, Tianyang was just a handsome human youth who didn't have much of a presence. If Qi Tian hadn't said anything, who would have known that Tianyang was so strong? However, this blood essence of the great saint of the dragon clan must be absorbed on the spot. Who will do it? At this moment, Lan Ji said, an ordinary man's wealth was his own ruin. Although their team was strong, before Tianyang came, they were just an ordinary team. If they were to face the Sea Dragon clan or the Xianyuan family, they would definitely die. Even if they were to face the Grand Sky Dragon clan, who had an 80% chance of dying in front of the Sea Dragon clan, it would be difficult for them. How could they safely take the blood essence of the great saint of the Dragon clan? Daydreaming. My brother and I are not of the Dragon clan, so we can't absorb it. You can split it. Huang Ck pulled Huang Kiki back a step. However, although they couldn't absorb the blood essence of the great saint of the Dragon clan, they could still bring in a lot of cultivation resources if they sold it. However, Huang Ck was an upright person and naturally wouldn't do such a thing. Qi Tian is the youngest and the most talented. His physical body is stronger than mine. I might not be able to absorb it completely. If Qi Tian absorbs the blood essence of the great saint of the Dragon clan, he might be able to reach the high level of the half-saint realm. In that case, we won't have to be afraid if we encounter a team like the Grand Sky Dragon clan again, said Jin Zhan. Hearing this, Huang Yun and Lan Ji, who were weaker than Jin Zhan, naturally didn't have the chance to speak. It wouldn't be their turn anyway. Hai Tian has a lot of treasures. He even has a map of the ancestral land of the dragon god. As Tianyang flew, he casually flipped through the map that he had just taken out from the Hai Tian dimensional bag. This map was one of the treasures that the Sea Dragon clan had accumulated over countless years. The ancestral land of the dragon god was boundless and was equivalent to a small world. Compared to the small world of the medicine god sect, it was many times larger. From the looks of it, 1/4 of the map had been drawn. It was obvious how much effort the Sea Dragon clan had put in to draw this map. It's just that I've benefited from it. Tianyang chuckled. Suddenly, his eyes focused. Here, it should be this place. Tianyang looked around and confirmed his position on the map. It's already said that the Northern Frost Dragon King's relic isn't far from me. The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled into a smile. In the Xintian Great World, there was another name for the great saint of the Dragon Clan. Dragon King. A saint was a dragon saint. A great saint was a dragon king. And a saint emperor was a dragon emperor. A great saint's relic. Not bad. If there's a physical sanctification technique, that would be even better. Tianyang smiled and instantly confirmed his direction. He rushed toward the Northern Frost Dragon King's relic. According to the brief notes on the map, the Northern Frost Dragon King's relic would open for a certain period of time. This time, the ancestral land of the dragon god was opening during this period. However, unbeknownst to Tianyang, thousands of miles away on the other side, 5 of the 6 from the Sea Dragon clan had finished gathering. Hai Tian isn't here yet. A man shrouded in a sea blue robe spoke slowly. He's not here yet. Maybe he met someone and ran off to kill them. That guy loves to humiliate the Dragon Clan on land. One of them shook his head and said, he's the only high-level half-saint here, but he's still running around. What a useless guy. Another person muttered. However, a smile appeared on his face. However, with a peak half-saint boss here, it doesn't matter if Hai Tian comes or not. Hai Tian is still useful. However, since he can't come, we'll look for him after we finish exploring the Northern Frost Dragon King's relic. The dragon in the sea blue robe said in a cold tone. This time, the elders in the clan have finally found a way to unlock the Northern Frost Dragon King's treasure. This time, let's take all the treasures the Northern Frost Dragon King left behind. This way, we won't have to explore the Northern Frost Dragon King's relic next time. Yes. Then, the 5 of them rushed toward the Northern Frost Dragon King's relic. Moreover, they were everywhere. They weren't the only ones who knew about the Northern Frost Dragon King's relic. Chapter 1265. The Northern Frost Dragon King's Relics. For Tianyang, who had reached the peak of the 5th transformation of the 9 transformations and was close to the 6th transformation, a distance of several thousand miles could be covered easily in 2 breaths. Moreover, there was no place for him to accelerate. If he accelerated fast enough, he could cover several thousand miles in an instant. Is this the Northern Frost Dragon King's relics? The heavenly sun glanced at the palace in front of him. It didn't emit any light. It just sat quietly on the huge ice field like a lonely king. The power of his primordial spirit trembled slightly and discovered the inside of the palace. It was not a simple space folding. There was a layer of space. The environment of the ancestral dragon god's land was very strange. A few thousand miles away, it was a wasteland. However, after a few thousand miles, it was another ice field. It was as if the entire Xintian Great World had been compressed into a small piece of land. Looks like I'm a first one. Tianyang glanced at his surroundings and revealed a faint smile. Without any hesitation, he was the first to enter. Since there was no one else, he would be the first one to eat crabs. Less than 3 minutes after Tianyang stepped into the Northern Frost Dragon King's relics, 2 streams of light flew in from different directions. They landed on the ground instantly, stirring up thousands of feet of ice dust. I didn't expect that the Sea Dragon tribe would not be the first to come. At this moment, the 5 sea dragon tribe members looked at the man in front of them with a hint of surprise. They had just gathered the 5 of them and rushed to the Northern Frost Dragon King's relics. They did not expect that there would be someone earlier than them. It's not just the sea dragon tribe. We have a map of the ancestral dragon god's land. By the way, let me give you a piece of advice. This is not a place for you to come. In front of them was a handsome young man with white hair and white clothes. However, his expression was very distant. His voice was ethereal, as if it came from beyond the universe. Hearing this, the mid-level sea dragon tribe members were enraged. Who do you think you are? How dare you order the sea dragon tribe members around? In the next moment, the mid-level sea dragon tribe members roared and clawed at the young man. A terrifying dragon claw print attacked the young man. This aura was so terrifying that it made people tremble. It was as if the space itself was trembling. Layers upon layers of the aura of the sea erupted from the claw. Ocean Dragon Clan, Holy Martial Arts, Ocean Wave, 9-layered claw. Boom, 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 boom. A mid-level half-saint quickly attacked. Claw after claw, claw after claw, claw after claw. The power of the claw was not inferior to a high-level half-saint's attack. However, seeing this, the snow-white young man only let out a faint sigh. Since you don't know what I am, why bother attacking me? In the next moment, the snow-white youth raised his hand. At this moment, the expression of the pinnacle half-saint in aquamarine changed slightly. Stop! In the next moment, the true yuan of a peak half-saint erupted. However, he was still a step too late. A streak of ice streaked across the ice field and appeared before the mid-level half-saint in an instant. The middle-level half-saint was sealed in ice, unable to resist at all. His entire body was frozen in ice, like a lifelike ice sculpture. The disdainful expression on his face was still frozen. Peak half-saint. The face of the peak half-saint from the Ocean Dragon Clan darkened. He immediately attacked. Countless attacks landed on the ice sculpture, shattering it instantly. Although the mid-level half-saint who was sealed in ice was frozen, he only shivered and did not suffer any serious injuries. Thank you for letting me win, the snow-white youth said indifferently. You too. I don't remember there being a peak half-saint like you on the continent. The peak half-saint from the Ocean Dragon Clan looked terrible as he stared at the snow-white youth. He had never seen such a strange technique before. Because I wasn't such a peak half-saint before, the snow-white youth said. The snow-white young man said. Then, he turned around and looked around. It seems that there are many people who know about the Northern Frost Dragon King's relics. Instead of wasting time here, why don't we go in as soon as possible? The snow-white youth said indifferently. Then he turned around and walked toward the Northern Frost Dragon King's relics. Do you think you can just leave after hitting my people? At this moment, the peak half-saint from the Ocean Dragon Clan huffed coldly and disappeared instantly. In the next moment, a terrifying claw appeared a meter behind the snow-white young man, and it shot swiftly towards the snow-white young man. Yes, the snow-white youth turned around and waved his right hand like lightning, shattering the claw print directly. At this moment, the peak half-saint from the Ocean Dragon Clan huffed coldly. Using the advantage of being in the air, he chopped down with his axe leg. The snow-white youth moved quickly. His hands moved like dragons and grabbed the axe leg. At the same time, the peak half-saint released his true origin and attacked the peak half-saint from the Ocean Dragon Clan. You have some skills. The peak half-saint from the Ocean Dragon Clan scoffed. But you're still far from it. In the next moment, the leg of the peak half-saint from the Ocean Dragon Clan turned into liquid instantly. The snow-white youth grabbed nothing but air. At the same time, his body twisted at a strange angle, and he threw a punch at the snow-white youth. The snow-white youth was stunned, but he reacted quickly. Seeing that there was no way to dodge, he threw a punch. Boom! The two fists collided violently. In an instant, the surrounding ice field cracked inch by inch. With the two of them as the center, spiderweb-like cracks spread out for thousands of meters. At the same time, thousands of ice shards were blown into the air, blocking everyone's vision. The mask covering the snow-white youth's face was finally blown away, revealing his face. This is the peak half-saint from the Ocean Dragon clan immediately saw the mysterious pattern between the snow-white youth's eyebrows. Or rather, it was a seal. Boom! The two of them punched each other again. This time, the two of them retreated rapidly. The peak half-saint from the Ocean Dragon clan's right arm was covered in layers of frost. His entire arm was like ice. The snow-white youth didn't have it easy either. Streaks of blood also appeared on his right arm. The Ocean Dragon power from the Ocean Dragon clan was wreaking havoc inside his arm. "You're the deity." The Ocean Dragon clan's expression was extremely ugly as he growled. "Since you know, why do you still want to fight?" The snow-white youth took down the flying mask and put it back on. "Then, we'll fight again when we meet in the Northern Frost Dragon King's palace." The peak half-saint from the Ocean Dragon clan's eyes were filled with battle intent as he smiled. "Sure," the snow-white youth said indifferently. Then he flashed and disappeared from the entrance of the Northern Frost Dragon King's palace. The peak half-saint from the Ocean Dragon clan also quickly returned to his side. The mid-level half-saint who had been frozen earlier was puzzled. "Boss, why don't we just kill him? He's the deity of the snow goddess. If we fight rashly, both sides will suffer." The peak half-saint from the Ocean Dragon clan said with a serious expression. Then he looked around. "Someone's coming. Let's go in first." Then the five of them followed the snow-white youth and stepped into the dragon palace together. "What the hell?" Tianyong looked at the snow-white surroundings in bewilderment. Is the Northern Frost Dragon King's residence really that unique? There was nothing but snow-white around. He couldn't see any other color at all. It was a vast expanse of whiteness. At this moment, a voice that sounded like a huge bell slowly rang out. "Haha, this is the first time someone has said that to me." Hearing that, Tianyong's expression changed immediately. Black light flashed in his hand, and the great void sword embryo appeared. The true flames of destruction, which had been upgraded to half an 8th level sacred flame, also burned. The power of the Saint Primordial Spirit was ready to be unleashed. Chapter 12:66. You don't have the bloodline of the dragon race, but you have the power of the dragon race. The voice chuckled. Tianyong raised his eyebrows. Although Tianyong had absorbed a large amount of dragon blood, he had only absorbed the essence of the energy and merged it with his 9 refined dragon body. He didn't have the bloodline of the dragon race at all. However, Tianyong had the power of the sage primordial spirit. Even a sage wouldn't be able to see through his body. Then, he could only be a great sage. The ancestral dragon godland has existed since countless years ago. Although there are many existences from the dragon clan who are willing to leave their treasures in the ancestral dragon godland after they die, those existences are thoroughly dead. So, you're just an artifact spirit. Don't pretend to be the Northern Frost Dragon King. Tianyong said indifferently. How could there be a living great sage in the ancestral dragon godland? For a sage, even if they were only left with a lingering will, they weren't really dead. They could still use all kinds of treasures to recover their souls. In the ancestral dragon godland, there were only ruins, tombs, and buried things left. How could there be a lingering will? What if I'm really the Northern Frost Dragon King? If a great sage is willing to live and be imprisoned in a secret realm that only opens once every few years, I have nothing to say. Tianyong said indifferently. This situation was either a trap or an artifact spirit playing tricks. He had experienced many battles and had seen many of them. TSK. I didn't expect there to be someone as smart as you among the humans who came in this time. How boring. At this moment, the snow-white space around him suddenly changed. Tianyong realized that behind him was no longer the entrance to the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins. Instead, it was a strange, giant crystal. However, even if I'm the artifact spirit of this ruin, I can still unleash the power of a sage primordial spirit. Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you for being so disrespectful to me? In front of Tianyong, a figure of light slowly took shape. In the end, it suddenly formed into an old man in a blue and white robe. His eyebrows and hair were completely white, and there were 2 huge dragon horns on his head. Battle prowess of a saint? Try it if you dare. Tianyang said with a smile. I don't have the guts. TSK, TSK. Even a Northern Frost Dragon King didn't see a single primordial spirit saint. Who would have thought that a primordial spirit saint kid would appear 1,000,000 years after the Northern Frost Dragon King's death? However, even though I can't defeat you, it doesn't mean that you can defeat me. In these ruins, I am the only king. So what's with the nonsense? Why are you looking for me? If you have something to say, just say it. Tianyang bluntly interrupted the artifact spirit's words. They were all saints, so why were they spouting nonsense? Hearing this, the artifact spirit, who was about to say a few more words to set off his image, was suddenly speechless. Young man, don't be so impatient. I asked you to come this time to give you a good fortune. If you have a good fortune, why don't you give it to me instead of the dragon race? Is there something wrong with your head? Tianyang still didn't hold back. Unless you've long wanted to rebel, or you want me to do something for you, it's most likely the latter. So, just treat it as an exchange of benefits. Don't talk about fortune and whatnot. Hearing this, the dragon-horned old man almost couldn't control himself. His eyebrows twitched, and the smile on his face froze. Fine, I do have something that I need your help with. In the end, the dragon-horned old man could only sigh and admit defeat. This trick had fooled who knew how many ignorant Dragon Clan youths. Why was it so useless when it came to the Heavenly Sun realm? Of course, this was also related to Tianyang's primordial spirit saint strength. The strongest people who had come here before were only peak half-saints, infinitely close to saints at most. It was rare to see someone like Tianyang, who had stepped into the primordial spirit saint realm before the age of 3,000. The dragon-horned old man could see that Tianyang wasn't from the dragon race through the connection between the dragon race. He couldn't see through the power of Tianyang's primordial spirit to see Tianyang's strength. He thought that Tianyang was already 2,999 years old. Do you see this crystal? The dragon-horned old man said with a sigh. Tianyang nodded slightly and looked at the crystal. However, Tianyang's brows furrowed slightly at the sight of it. This crystal? Yes, it's a demon saint sealed in it, the dragon-horned old man said. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Don't tell me you want me to fight the great demon king alone. If you really say that, I'll turn around and leave without another word. You can find someone else. Tianyang knew his limits. Although he was already a primordial spirit saint, the crystal was able to make the artifact spirit of the Northern Frost Dragon King unable to do anything to it. Clearly, it wasn't easy to deal with. He didn't believe that the crystal only appeared after the Northern Frost Dragon King died. How could he deal with a demon saint that even a Northern Frost Dragon King couldn't do anything to? Of course not. Even I can't do it. How can you do it? Seeing that Tianyang was really going to leave, the dragon-horned old man panicked and said hurriedly, but there's one thing you can do. Before the Northern Frost Dragon King died, he purposely placed me in this dog coin space to watch over the sealed demon saint. However, as time passed, the demon saint seal was broken by waves of demon saints that broke into the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins. Now, the seal's effect has weakened. Although the demon saint is only a saint, he's extremely difficult to deal with. The Northern Frost Dragon King purposely left him alive to guard the inheritance. In order to strengthen the seal, we have to obtain the inheritance. So, I can only ask for your help. Only if you obtain the inheritance of the Northern Frost Dragon King can you suppress the demon saint again. The dragon-horned old man said helplessly. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression became a little strange. Coincidentally, he had also entered the ruins of the Northern Frost Dragon King because of the treasures inside. So, what you want me to do is to obtain the inheritance of the Northern Frost Dragon King? Tianyang asked. Hearing this, the dragon-horned old man nodded. As for the reward, I will give you a map of the entire ancestral Dragon Godland. Although there will be changes to the ancestral Dragon Godland, there won't be too big of a change. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes lit up. A map of the entire ancestral Dragon Godland. That was much better than the map in the hands of the Dragon Tribe of the Azure Sea, which was only 1/5 of the map. Deal. Tianyong smiled. The dragon-horned old man chuckled. Then, good luck. In the next moment, a space energy covered Tianyong. Tianyong's figure disappeared instantly. The next time he appeared, he was already in the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins. The corners of Tianyong's mouth curled into a strange smile. Chapter 1267. Instantly, waves of extremely cold aura surged toward Tianyong. Heavenly Sun's expression instantly changed. The true flames of destruction immediately ignited, isolating the terrifying cold torrent outside. I didn't expect the Northern Frost Dragon King to make it so cold in his own palace. The fire dragons are probably weaker than the humans in the ancestral land of the dragon god. Tianyong chuckled. As a member of the human race, as long as he could isolate himself from the cold, he would be able to easily adapt to any environment. However, the flame dragon race's main attribute was fire, which was incompatible with this extremely cold aura. If they came to the Northern Frost Dragon King's palace, they would be reduced to high-level half-saints to mid-level half-saints, and mid-level half-saints to low-level half-saints. However, the environment doesn't matter. The most important thing now is to find the Northern Frost Dragon King's treasure. Tianyong chuckled. His figure flashed as he released the power of his Saint Stage primordial spirit to search his surroundings. Inheritance? It should be very important. Since the demon saint couldn't get out in a short time, it was better to find other treasures first. If he couldn't find the inheritance and the treasure in the end, he would be a fool. On the other side, this is the Northern Frost Dragon King's relic. The snow-white young man looked around with an indifferent expression. That guy should be here too. Then, the snow-white young man suddenly flew into the air and flew toward a certain direction. The relic was like a huge palace. There were many paths that extended in all directions. No one knew where each path led to. Therefore, everyone could only rely on guesses. No one knew if it was a coincidence. If Tianyong and the snow-white young man didn't change directions, they would meet in the end. Damn it, where is this? The Sea Dragon Tribe's group split up the moment they entered. The 5 people who had gathered together with great difficulty split up again as soon as they entered. Fortunately, the weakest of the Sea Dragon Tribe's group was a mid-level half-saint. They didn't have to worry about the safety of the 4 people. However, the peak half-saint of the Sea Dragon race looked extremely gloomy. Just like how the Azure Sea Dragon Tribe was unable to fully explore the ancestral land of the dragon gods, they were also unable to fully explore the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins. The peak half-step saint of the Ocean Dragon race had landed in an area where there were no records at all. If I had known earlier, I would have given them the map as well. If they had also found it, more or less, they would have had a greater chance. The peak half-saint of the Sea Dragon race looked terrible. Beside him, there was a flash of light. A stern-looking young man from the Dragon Tribe appeared not far away. Hi, Yuanxiu. She's also in the Northern Frost Dragon King's ruins. At this moment, that person's expression changed drastically when he saw the peak half-step saint of the Azure Sea Dragon clan. His figure flashed, and he fled in panic. The peak half-saint of the Sea Dragon race looked awful too. Originally, he had wanted to interrogate that person to see if he knew where this place was. I don't care. I'll just walk around. Sooner or later, I'll be done. The peak half-saint of the Sea Dragon race had an awful look on his face. He chose a tunnel at random and charged in. This aura, relying on the power of his nascent soul, Tianyong was able to detect any treasures that appeared around him as he flew. Therefore, Tianyong noticed a beautiful ice lotus emitting an icy aura not far away in an instant. Arctic ice lotus. Tianyong's lips curled into a smile. This kind of treasure was a great supplement for Ling Yuhan. It was as useful as a holy item for Ling Yuhan to cultivate the 9 Nether Frost technique. What Tianyong didn't notice was that the snow-white young man had discovered the Arctic ice lotus with him. Seeing the Arctic ice lotus, the snow-white young man's indifferent eyes were filled with endless complicated emotions. If I were to gift this Arctic ice lotus to her, she would probably be very happy. In the next moment, the snow-white young man sped up. At the same time, Tianyang used the heavens' expanse 9 transformations. Someone's here. Tianyang was the first to notice the snow-white young man's presence. His expression changed slightly, and he charged toward the Arctic ice lotus. A few seconds later, the snow-white young man also saw Tianyang. The expression on his face instantly changed. In the next moment, he gave up on the Arctic ice lotus and charged toward Tianyang. Snow God's heaven-sealing seal. The snow-white young man roared. His peak half-saint's true yuan circulated rapidly. The mysterious seal between his eyebrows also released rays of light. In the next moment, an extremely terrifying seal shot toward Tianyang. Tianyang's expression also changed. He hadn't even attacked this fellow, and this fellow had already made the first move to gain the upper hand. If that was the case, then don't blame him for not showing mercy. He raised the great void sword embryo in his hand, and an extremely powerful sword aura was released. Sky sword technique, fourth sword, firmament. Boom! A sword light that seemed to be above the firmament shot out and collided with the snow god's heaven-sealing seal. Boom! In an instant, extremely powerful rays of light were released, and energy ripples spread wildly. Tianyang didn't move at all, and the snow-white young man instantly retreated. However, Tianyang was also slightly stunned. This aura, Jiang Shuling? Tianyang wasn't unfamiliar with Jiang Shuling. After all, she was the person who almost made him a cuckold. Tianyang couldn't be unfamiliar with her even if he wanted to. However, he didn't expect Jiang Shuling to appear in the Northern Frost Dragon King's relics. Moreover, she was so much stronger. It's been a long time, Tianyang. At this moment, Jiang Shuling also took off the mask on her face. Her emotionless eyes towards the peak half-saint of the sea dragon race suddenly filled with emotions. It was because of Tianyang that she had decided to enter the snow god's legacy. It was because of Tianyang that Jiang Shuling had survived the terrifying snow god's legacy trial, obtained the snow god's power, and became the snow god's son of God. It could be said that Tianyang had made her stronger. Now, Jiang Shuling wanted to defeat Tianyang with her own hands. It's indeed been a long time. After confirming that it was Jiang Shuling, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. He glanced at the Arctic ice lotus and smiled. You want the Arctic ice lotus too? That's right. Jiang Shuling nodded. At this moment, Tianyang smiled faintly. If it was something else, I might have given it to you on account of how I've caused your Snow Sky Fox clan to suffer a great loss. However, this frigid ice lotus is my gift to Yuan. I can't give it to you. Tianyang smiled and said. Jiang Shuling's lips curled up when she heard that. I happen to agree with you. However, this Arctic ice lotus isn't important now. Jiang Shuling smiled. In the next moment, she disappeared instantly. Now, the most important thing is to defeat you. Witness the power of the snow god. The power of the snow god. Instantly, the seal in between Jiang Shuling's eyebrows released rays of Xinguang.